Hello everyone, and welcome to the Fictional Vortex. So we are back with an interesting movie on what if Naruto was the ascended mortal, the sage who reached in. Angelhood, Naruto x Marcarita x Vados, Dragon Ball Super. But before we start, I just want to remind you to please subscribe to my channel and hit the like button if you enjoy my content. Let's start the story. Chapter 1. Transcendence. Golden light spilled across the weathered stone faces of the Hokage monument, casting long shadows that stretched toward the horizon like yearning fingers. Atop the carved visage of the seventh Hokage, his own likeness, Naruto Uzumaki sat motionless, legs crossed in perfect lotus position, palms upturned on his knees. White hair, once vibrant blonde, cascaded down his shoulders, stirring gently in the evening breeze. Though decades had passed since he'd relinquished his title to the next generation, time had touched him with surprising gentleness, his face bow. The dignified lines of wisdom rather than decay. Konoha sprawled beneath him, unrecognizable from the village of his youth. Gleaming skyscrapers of glass and steel pierced the skyline alongside traditional wooden structures. A testament to the unprecedented era of peace and prosperity that had followed the Fourth Great Ninja War. Technology and tradition coexisted in harmony, much like the balance he'd spent his life pursuing. Within the sanctum of his mind, Naruto floated in an endless void, facing the massive form of his oldest companion. "You're really going through with this," Kurama rumbled, Nine Tails swaying behind him. "It wasn't a question. I've gone as far as I can on this path," Naruto replied, his voice echoing with a resonance that belonged to neither child nor elderly man, but something timeless. "You've felt it too," the nine-tailed fox snorted, crimson eyes narrowing. "Most people would be satisfied with becoming the most powerful shinobi in history, achieving peace across nations, and living to see their great-grandchildren. Since when have I been most people?" A smile played across Naruto's lips. "Besides, this isn't about power anymore. It's about understanding. Understanding what lies beyond," Kurama finished. "I know. I've been in your head for nearly a century." The ancient beast's expression softened almost imperceptibly. The others achieved enlightenment and moved on. Even Sasuke finally found his peace. Yet here you are, still seeking more. "Not more," Naruto corrected, "deeper." The void around them pulsed, stars materializing and swirling in intricate patterns. These weren't mere visualizations, they were the very fabric of reality becoming visible to his heightened perception. Years of meditation and exploration had peeled away the veils between dimensions until the underlying structure of existence began revealing itself. "What happens to me?" Kurama's question carried uncharacteristic vulnerability. "Our chakra has been intertwined for so long." Naruto extended his hand, touching the space between the fox's eyes. "We've been beyond mere Jinchuriki and tailed beast for decades. Whatever awaits, we face it together, as always." Outside his meditation, a single tear tracked down Naruto's weathered cheek, glimmering with inner light as it fell. It never reached the ground. The tear suspended in midair, transforming into a perfect crystalline sphere that caught the dying sunlight and fractured it into impossible colors. Across his body, similar phenomena manifested, his breath becoming visible as golden mist. The steady rhythm of his heartbeat sending ripples through space itself. Beneath the village, deep within the earth, ancient chakra lines awakened, responding to the transformation happening above. Trees throughout the land of fire simultaneously shed their leaves regardless of season, the foliage spiraling upward in synchronized green torrents. Rivers paused their eternal journey to the sea, water trembling with anticipation. Nature itself held its breath. Miles away, in the Valley of the End, the waterfall between the statues of Hashirama and Madara split perfectly down the middle, flowing upward against gravity before hovering in a massive, impossible sphere. The stone eyes of the founders began to glow with inner light, responding to ancient protocols established during the birth of ninjutsu itself. In his office, the current Hokage, great-grandson of Konohamaru, stood abruptly, papers scattering as overwhelming pressure descended upon the village. Anbu materialized instantly, weapons drawn. "Stand down," he commanded, moving to the window. "It's him. Nanadime-sama began one masked operative. Completing what he began decades ago, the Hokage finished, watching the phenomenon unfolding atop the monument. We were warned this day would come. Across the 5 great nations, similar scenes unfolded as sensors and sages detected the massive disturbance in natural energy. Not a disturbance of chaos or destruction, but of transcendence. On the monument, Naruto's eyes opened, revealing not the familiar blue or the fox's crimson, but something altogether different. Irises containing swirling galaxies of light. The ancient sage lifted gently from the stone, hovering several inches above it as reality bent around him. I understand now, he whispered to the universe. The boundaries between dimensions thinned. Chakra, natural energy, and something beyond both merged and transformed within him. Naruto had spent decades studying the origins of chakra, tracing it back past Kagaya, past the God Tree, to its primordial source, and now he touched that source directly. Reality shuddered, not just in his world, but across existence. In the sacred realm of the world of void, Grand Minister paused mid-sentence during his report to the Omni King. His normally imperturbable expression faltered as he turned toward an invisible disturbance. Something troubles you? Asked Zeno, the childlike deity tilting his head curiously. A most unusual phenomenon, my lord, the Grand Minister replied, staff materializing in his hand. Something that should be impossible. Across the 12 universes, angels attending their respective gods of destruction simultaneously tensed, their celestial senses detecting the same anomaly. In Universe 11, within the ornate chambers of God of Destruction Belmod, angel attendant Marcarita abruptly straightened, her normally composed features showing genuine surprise. Marcarita, Belmod questioned, pausing his destruction authorization paperwork. What is it? A disturbance, she replied, her melodious voice uncharacteristically tense. No, an emergence. Something is ascending. Another destroyer candidate? Belmod asked, interest piqued. His impending retirement had been a point of ongoing discussion. No, Marcarita's staff materialized, its orb pulsing with activity. Something unprecedented. A mortal achieving celestial transcendence, independently. That's impossible, Belmod scoffed. Mortals can achieve godhood through proper channels and appointment, but celestial status requires. I am aware of what it requires. Marcarita interrupted, a breach of protocol that demonstrated her distraction. Nevertheless, it is happening. In Universe 6, Vados paused while observing a promising civilization. Her attention diverted by the same phenomenon. Unlike Marcarita's concern, her expression showed intense curiosity. Now that, she murmured to herself, as genuinely interesting. The Grand Minister's voice echoed simultaneously to all angels across creation, identify and investigate. Priority Alpha. Marcarita didn't wait for further instruction. With a tap of her staff, she vanished from Belmod's chamber, traveling through dimensions at speeds beyond comprehension. Her celestial senses pinpointed the origin of the disturbance, a small, unremarkable world in the farthest reaches of Universe 11. One that had never produced candidates for godhood or destruction. Until now. The transformation reached its zenith as Naruto's body became translucent, chakra pat. Ways visible as rivers of light coursing through his form. The final barriers between mortal and something greater thinned to imperceptibility. In this moment of transition, memories cascaded through his consciousness, not sequential but simultaneous, every moment of his existence present at once. A lonely child swinging beneath a tree, desperate for acknowledgement. A genin declaring his ninja way before incredulous opponents. A young man facing pain amid the crater that had been his village. A war hero uniting the shinobi world against impossible odds. A Hokage watching his children grow while preserving hard-won peace. An elder sage passing wisdom to generations that followed. And now, something more. Is this what you saw, Hagoromo? Naruto whispered to the memory of the Sage of Six Paths. Is this what you were preparing us for? The answer came not in words but in understanding that bloomed within him like a cosmic flower. The origins of chakra, the true nature of the Otsutsuki. The purpose of humanity's evolution. All pieces of a pattern too vast for mortal comprehension, yet now unfurling before his expanded awareness. As the final transformation approached, Naruto made a choice that would define his ascension. He held fast to his humanity. Unlike those who sought godhood to escape mortal limitations, he carried his experiences, connections, and hard-won wisdom with him. Integrating rather than transcending. The pulse of energy that emanated from this decision rippled outward, touching every corner of his world before expanding beyond, into dimensions he had never known existed. And then, completion. Where Naruto had hovered above the Hokage monument, a column of light erupted skyward, momentarily connecting earth to heavens. When it faded, he was gone, leaving behind only a perfect circle of crystallized energy embedded in the stone, a memorial more lasting than any carved face. The citizens of Konoha who witnessed the event would later describe it differently. Each according to their perception. A hero's ascension, the birth of a new star, the fulfillment of ancient prophecy. In coming days, pilgrims would travel from across the world to touch the crystallized circle, finding that it resonated with each person uniquely, offering insights and healing according to need. But Naruto Uzumaki was no longer there to witness it. He materialized in the Valley of the End, drawn instinctively to the place where his most significant battles had occurred. The massive suspended sphere of water still hovered between the statues, frozen in its impossible position. Naruto observed it with new perception, seeing not just water molecules but the very forces binding them, the potential energies, the quantum fluctuations beneath physical reality. His appearance had changed. Though still recognizably himself, his form now emanated subtle light, his white hair and traditional sage robes seeming to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Turns resembling both Uzumaki spirals and ancient celestial script adorned his skin like luminous tattoos, shifting and changing with his thoughts. Naruto raised his hand experimentally, watching as reality responded to his intent rather than his chakra. The sphere of water transformed, becoming a perfect model of the solar system, then a representation of chakra pathways, then returning to water. That gently descended to rejoin the river. Interesting, he murmured, his voice carrying new harmonics that caused the stone statues to vibrate in response. Different, yet familiar. Quite remarkable, came a voice from behind him. Especially for someone who's achieved this state without instruction. Naruto turned, unsurprised by the presence he had sensed approaching from elsewhere. Dimensions that had been invisible to him before now registered clearly, including the pathways this visitor had traveled. Marcarita hovered several inches above the water's surface, her immaculate appearance unmarred by the journey. Tall and slender, with pale blue skin and white hair arranged in an elaborate style, she carried herself with the unmistakable authority of a being accustomed to cosmic power. Her purple and black uniform marked her as something beyond the gods and entities Naruto had encountered in his world. "You're not from around here," Naruto observed with a small smile, his new senses cataloging countless differences between them despite their superficially humanoid appearances. A significant understatement, Marcarita replied, circling him with analytical precision. Her staff occasionally emitting soft chimes as it collected data. "And you are not what you were mere moments ago." True enough. Naruto remained relaxed despite her inspection. "I'm Naruto Uzumaki, though I suspect you already knew that." Quote, Marcarita, angel attendant to the god of destruction Belmod, Universe 11. She completed her circuit around him, expression carefully neutral. "You've created quite the disturbance. Naruto Uzumaki. Beings across multiple universes felt your emergence. Hadn't planned on disturbing anyone," he replied with a hint of his old sheepishness. "Just following the path to its conclusion. That's precisely what's unprecedented." Marcarita tapped her staff against the water's surface, creating ripples that formed complex mathematical patterns. "Mortal beings don't spontaneously achieve celestial status. It's neither permitted nor possible without external intervention." Naruto shrugged. "Been doing the impossible most of my life. Ask anyone around here." For the first time, Marcarita's composure showed a crack, the barest hint of annoyance. "This isn't about surpassing physical limitations or achieving unlikely victories. You've fundamentally altered your existence in ways reserved for beings appointed by higher authorities." "I didn't exactly have a manual," Naruto responded, his tone remaining conversational despite the implicit accusation. "Just followed the chakra to its source." "Chakra," Marcarita repeated, the word clearly catalogued for future reference. "Your world's particular energy system. Fascinating that it could serve as a pathway to true celestial energy." She gestured with her staff, creating a glowing diagram in the air between them, a complex hierarchy of beings and dimensions that Naruto instinctively understood. despite having never seen such information before. This is the established order of existence, she explained. From mortals to gods to destroyers to angels and beyond. Each level maintains balance and serves specific functions. Transitions between levels follow strict protocols and appointment procedures. Naruto studied the diagram, recognizing parallels to systems in his own world while noting the vastly greater scope. And I just skipped a few steps. You shouldn't have been capable of skipping any steps, Marcarita corrected. Yet preliminary readings suggest you've achieved a state analogous to angel class being. Without appointment, training, or even awareness of our existence. She vanished and reappeared instantaneously at his side, moving faster than even his enhanced perception could track. The question is whether this represents a fascinating anomaly, or a potential threat to cosmic order. Naruto met her gaze directly, neither intimidated nor challenging. I've spent my life protecting peace and balance. That hasn't changed just because my understanding of the universe expanded. Noble sentiments, Marcarita acknowledged. But intention and impact don't always align, particularly at cosmic scales. Around them, reality rippled as several more presences approached through dimensional pathways. Naruto sensed them instantly, similar to Marcarita in fundamental nature, yet each distinct in energy signature. Your colleagues? He asked. Other angels investigating the anomaly, she confirmed. Though I arrived first, as this sector falls under Universe 11's jurisdiction. Getting pretty crowded for a private conversation, Naruto observed, then made a decision. With a gesture that felt as natural as breathing, he expanded his perception, identified the dimensional coordinates, and transported both himself and Marcarita to a different location, the top of Mount Myoboku, ancient home of the Toads. Marcarita's eyes widened fractionally. Transported us both across space without preparation or apparent effort. Seemed easier than shouting over a committee, Naruto replied, settling cross-legged on the moss-covered stone. The mountain was deserted, the Toad sages having departed decades earlier when their contract with the human world concluded. I figured we could have a real conversation before your associates arrive. The angel studied him with increased interest. Most newly elevated beings struggle with basic dimensional perception for centuries, yet you're already manipulating space-time coordinates instinctively. Naruto tapped his temple. Had some practice. My father developed the Flying Thunder God technique, and I spent years studying space-time ninjutsu with Sasuke. Your existing knowledge frameworks are integrating with celestial capabilities. Marcarita observed. Unusual, but efficient. She gracefully lowered herself to sit opposite him, staff balanced across her knees. The formality in her posture eased fractionally. Very well. Before my counterparts trace your energy signature here, explain your process. How did a mortal from an unremarkable world achieve what should have been impossible? Naruto smiled at the characterization of his world as unremarkable, but chose not to contest it. Instead, he closed his eyes briefly, organizing the vast new knowledge that swirled within his consciousness. It began with understanding chakra's true nature. He started. Not just as energy for techniques, but as a connection to something deeper. Hagoromo Otsutsuki, we called him the Sage of Six Paths, first brought chakra to our world. But he was merely channeling something that existed beyond our dimension. Otsutsuki, Marcarita repeated, recognition flickering across her features. The sea, land that travels between worlds consuming divine trees. Naruto nodded, unsurprised that she knew of them. In our world, their arrival set in motion events that shaped our entire history. But while they sought power through consumption, I began exploring chakra's source directly. He raised his hand, creating a miniature representation of the chakra system that expanded to show connections to natural energy. Then to cosmic forces beyond. Sage mode was the first key. It taught me to draw energy from nature itself. Then Six Paths Sage mode connected me to something even deeper. The display expanded further, showing conceptual pathways that transcended physical representation. After decades of meditation and exploration, I began perceiving layers of reality beyond anything in our recorded history. Not just other dimensions, but the foundational structures of existence itself. Marcarita watched with growing fascination as his demonstration revealed understandings that mortals shouldn't possess. You mapped the quantum substrate through meditation. Called it something different, but essentially yes. Naruto's display evolved to show energy patterns resembling those used in celestial navigation. Once I could perceive these deeper structures, I realized consciousness could interact with them directly, without intermediary systems like chakra. And instead of merely observing, you initiated integration. Marcarita concluded, beginning to understand. Your consciousness expanded to operate at quantum celestial levels. It wasn't a deliberate breach of cosmic protocol. Naruto added with a hint of his characteristic humor. Just following the path where it led. Before Marcarita could respond, the space around them distorted as another being arrived, tall and slender like Marcarita, but with teal skin and her white hair arranged in a high ponytail. She carried a similar staff and exuded the same fundamental energy, though with distinct individual characteristics. Vados, Marcarita acknowledged with a slight nod. Universe 6 is quite distant. Your interest seems disproportionate to jurisdictional concerns. Spontaneous celestial ascension warrants investigation regardless of boundaries. Vados replied smoothly, her voice melodic with underlying tones that carried additional information beyond her words. Her attention shifted to Naruto, eyes widening slightly. Fascinating. Not merely an elevated mortal, but true dimensional integration. She circled Naruto once, then stopped, head tilted in curiosity. And you've retained your original persona, rather than submitting to standard consciousness reformatting. Most irregular. There's formatting involved, Naruto asked, looking between them. Nobody mentioned paperwork for transcendence. To his surprise, Vados's lips curved in amusement. It speaks with individuality intact. Marcarita, were you planning to report this anomaly or study it privately? Official protocols are being followed. Marcarita replied with faint defensiveness. I was gathering preliminary information before others arrived. Of course, Vados agreed, the subtle inflection suggesting she believed otherwise. She turned back to Naruto. You've created quite the stir, ascending without permission. The Grand Minister himself has taken notice. Not intentionally, Naruto replied, rising to his feet with fluid grace. Still getting used to operating at this scale. Nevertheless, Vados continued, your achievement raises important questions. Particularly whether other mortals might replicate your path. Doubtful, Marcarita interjected. Initial analysis suggests his particular circumstances are statistically unique, a convergence of biological factors, energy system anomalies, and experiences that wouldn't occur elsewhere. You've been this realm's attendant for millions of years, Vados observed. Yet failed to notice this development until completion. Marcarita's expression cooled. Unev. RSE-11 contains billions of inhabited worlds. This particular planet showed no indicators of celestial potential during standard surveys. Naruto watched their exchange with interest, noting the subtle competitive dynamic between them. Despite their celestial status, they displayed recognizably personal traits, a reassuring discovery for someone concerned about losing his humanity in transcendence. Ladies, he interrupted gently. I'm happy to answer questions, but maybe we should address the immediate situation. I'm guessing my unauthorized ascension requires some kind of response from your authorities. Both angels turned to him, seemingly surprised by his practical approach. Indeed, Marcarita confirmed, the Grand Minister will require your presence for evaluation and determination of status. Essentially, you need to be classified and assigned, Vados added. Unaffiliated celestial beings are not permitted within the established order. Naruto absorbed this information, considering implications that stretched far beyond his original understanding of his transformation. And if I prefer to remain unaffiliated? The temperature around them dropped several degrees as both angels' expressions became simultaneously serious. That, Marcarita stated flatly, is not an option. The cosmos operates under strict hierarchies and protocols, Vados explained, her usual lightness absent. Beings of significant power must be integrated into the system or addressed. The implicit threat was clear, though Naruto sensed it stemmed from cosmic law rather than personal malice. He nodded thoughtfully, cataloging options with his expanded awareness. I understand. When do we leave? Immediately, Marcarita answered. However, there is the matter of your world. Newell. Why ascended beings typically severe connections to their mortal origins to prevent interference in natural development? Naruto's expression hardened slightly, the first resistance he'd shown. That's not negotiable. I won't abandon my world or my connections here. Your attachments are irrelevant to cosmic protocol, Marcarita began, but Vados raised a hand, interrupting her. Perhaps, Vados suggested, given the unprecedented nature of this ascension, traditional protocols might be reconsidered. At the Grand Minister's discretion, of course. Marcarita shot her counterpart a look of surprise before composing herself. That would be highly irregular. As is his entire existence, Vados countered smoothly. Best to present all options rather than enforce standards that may not apply. Naruto looked between them, recognizing a potential ally in Vados despite her inscrutability. I appreciate that perspective. I'm willing to learn your system and protocols, but not at the cost of what makes me who I am. Admirable sentiment, Vados commented. Though potentially problematic for integration. Naruto shrugged. Been dealing with integration problems since I was born with a nine-tailed fox inside me. We'll figure it out. At his words, both Angel's attention sharpened. Nine-tailed fox, Marcarita repeated. You harbor another consciousness. As if in response, golden energy swirled around Naruto, coalescing into Kurama's massive form, visible yet translucent. The fox regarded the angels with ancient eyes. I am Kurama, the beast rumbled. The nine tails, my chalk, Ra and consciousness have been linked with Naruto's since his birth. A symbiotic consciousness that survived celestial ascension, Vados observed with genuine surprise. The statistical improbability continues to compound. Marcarita studied the manifestation closely. This entity possesses significant energy of its own. Was it instrumental in your transformation process? We've been partners for decades, Naruto explained. Kurama's energy combined with mine created new possibilities that neither of us could have achieved alone. The fox snorted. He means I kept him alive long enough to achieve impossible things. Repeatedly, Naruto smiled at the familiar grumbling. That too. Vados approached the fox manifestation, circling it with open curiosity. A naturally evolved energy being indigenous to this realm. Fascinating. Your world continues to present unexpected variables. We should proceed, Marcarita interrupted, clearly concerned about further complications. The Grand Minister awaits, and other angels will arrive momentarily. Naruto nodded, allowing Kurama's manifestation to recede. I'm ready. One moment, he added, closing his eyes briefly. His consciousness expanded across the planet, touching familiar presences one last time, his descendants in Konoha, the other hidden villages, places and people that had defined his mortal existence. Not goodbye, but acknowledgement. When he opened his eyes, they contained renewed purpose. Now I'm ready. Marcarita extended her staff, creating a dimensional passage. This will transport us directly to the sacred world of the Kais, where preliminary evaluation will occur. The Grand Minister will determine next steps based on findings, Vados added, moving to stand on Naruto's other side. Naruto took a deep breath, an unnecessary action in his new state, but a grounding human habit. Lead the way. As they prepared to depart, Vados leaned slightly closer. A word of advice, she murmured. The cosmic hierarchy values order above all. Your unique path to ascension will be viewed with suspicion by many. Tread carefully. Noted, Naruto replied quietly. Though in my experience, sometimes systems need disruption to evolve. Something like approval flickered in Vados's eyes before she straightened. Indeed, this should prove interesting. Together, they stepped into the dimensional passage, leaving Earth behind. The portal closed behind them with a subtle ripple, as if reality itself was adjusting to the departure of someone who had transcended its boundaries. In the valley below Mount Myoboku, a solitary toad, ancient and wizened, emerged from hiding to stare at the spot where they had vanished. It blinked once, then twice, before diving back into the pool with a splash that echoed like laughter across the empty mountain. The transition between dimensions was unlike anything Naruto had experienced, even with his extensive history of space-time manipulation. Rather than moving through space, they shifted between fundamental layers of reality, bypassing physical limitations entirely. For Naruto, the journey became a cascade of revelations. Each layer they traversed revealed new aspects of cosmic structure, the quantum foundations, the connective energies between universes, the higher dimensional mathematics governing existence itself. His newly expanded consciousness absorbed these insights eagerly, integrating them with his existing knowledge. Remarkable, Vados commented, observing his reactions. Most newly ascended beings experience significant disorientation during first trans-dimensional travel. He's processing celestial informational input at unprecedented rates, Marcarita added, her tone suggesting this was yet another irregularity to document. It's like Sage Mode, Naruto explained, but exponentially more complex, drawing in information and energy simultaneously. The passage opened into a realm of impossible beauty, rolling green landscape. Beneath skies of shifting purple and blue, crystalline structures that served functions beyond mortal comprehension, and air that seemed to carry music within its molecules. The sacred world of the Kais, Marcarita announced as they materialized on a crystalline platform. Nexus point for Universe 11's administration. Naruto absorbed the surroundings, automatically cataloging energy patterns, dimensional anchors, and the subtle restrictions that prevented unauthorized travel to and from this realm. Despite its tranquil appearance, he recognized it as a carefully controlled cosmic workspace rather than a natural environment. Several beings awaited their arrival, diminutive figures with blue skin and white hair, dressed in formal attire that marked them as important functionaries. They regarded Naruto with expressions ranging from curiosity to outright alarm. Supreme Kai, Marcarita acknowledged with a respectful nod to the central figure. I present Naruto Uzumaki, the anomalous ascendant from Dimensional Sector 3829. Quote, the Supreme Kai approached cautiously, his ancient eyes studying Naruto with intensity that belied his small stature. Unprecedented, he murmured, the energy signature is unmistakably celestial, yet structured unlike any I've encountered. He integrated his realm's indigenous energy system into the ascension process, Vados explained, creating a unique hybrid state. Is that even possible? One of the assistant Kais whispered loudly. Evidently, the Supreme Kai replied dryly. He circled Naruto once before stepping back. The Grand Minister Ha's authorized preliminary evaluation here before potential transport to the Omni King's realm. We've prepared the Crucible of Essence. He gestured toward an elaborate structure that had materialized. Behind them, a circular platform surrounded by 12 crystalline pillars, each pulsing with different colored energy. The Crucible will measure your celestial attributes and compatibility with cosmic law, Marcarita explained to Naruto. All ascended beings undergo this analysis. Naruto nodded, approaching the structure without hesitation. Sounds like a more elaborate version of the chakra paw. Per tests we used to give academy students. The Supreme Kai blinked in surprise at the casual comparison. This is an ancient artifact created by the gods themselves too. I meant no disrespect, Naruto interrupted gently. Just finding parallels to make sense of new experiences. The Supreme Kai closed his mouth, exchanging glances with his assistants. This was clearly not the typical behavior of a being undergoing evaluation. Naruto stepped onto the central platform, immediately feeling the structure's energy synchronizing with his own. The pillars brightened in response, colors shifted. Through spectrums both visible and beyond mortal perception. Remarkable response curve, one assistant Kai muttered, consulting a floating display of symbols. The Crucible is registering energy patterns it can't classify. Because they're hybrid forms, Vados observed. His indigenous chakra, integrated with celestial energy, creates signatures outside standard parameters. The pillars began to resonate, emitting harmonics that transformed the surrounding air into visible patterns, complex mandalas and equations that described Naruto's fundamental nature in cosmic terms. Extraordinary, the Supreme Kai whispered. The power level is consistent with mid-tier celestial classification, but the structural composition is unlike anything in our records. Is that problematic? Naruto asked, perfectly comfortable within the analyzing energies. Problematic? No, the Supreme Kai replied carefully. Unprecedented. Absolutely. The analysis intensified, light from the pillars converged to form a complete three-dimensional model of Naruto's energy structure, a complex lattice where traditional celestial patterns intertwined with the distinctive spirals of Uzumaki chakra, all sustained by a core that pulsed with both familiar and alien rhythms. There, Marcarita pointed to an anomaly in the display. Secondary consciousness patterns. The nine-tailed entity he carries. The Supreme Kai's eyes widened. A dual consciousness ascension. That shouldn't be possible without fragmentation. Yet here we are, Vados commented, studying the phenomenon with open interest. The symbiotic relationship appears to have stabilized both patterns rather than creating conflict. As they discussed his unusual nature, Naruto focused inward, communicating with Kurama. "What do you make of all this?" he asked silently. "They're as surprised by you as always," the fox replied with familiar gruffness. "Some things never change, regardless of dimension." Naruto suppressed a smile. Even amid cosmic evaluation, Kurama's perspective remained grounding. The analysis concluded with a harmonic convergence that sent waves of light outward before settling into a stable pattern. The Supreme Kai approached, consulting symbols that meant nothing to Naruto despite his expanded awareness. "The evaluation is complete," he announced. "Your status is confirmed as Celestial Class Entity, Th. with significant deviations from standard patterns. The Grand Minister will need to make final determination regarding classification and assignment." "And what happens until then?" Naruto asked. "You will be transported to the world of Void for final evaluation," Marcarita answered. "The Grand Minister and possibly the Omni King himself will determine your place in the cosmic hierarchy." The implications weren't lost on Naruto. Despite his power and newly elevated status, he was entering a system with established rules and beings of unimaginable authority. His independent nature, the very quality that defined his mortal life, might prove problematic in this new context. "Before we proceed," he said, stepping from the platform, "I'd like to clarify something." He turned to address both angels and the assembled Kais. "I'm willing to learn your system and respect cosmic order, but not at the expense of who I am. My connections to my world, my unique path, and my partnership with Kurama are non-negotiable." The Supreme Kai looked scandalized at this declaration, while the assistant Kais exchanged nervous glances. Even Marcarita seemed taken aback by his directness. Only Vados appeared unsurprised, a subtle curve to her lips suggesting something between amusement and approval. Bold statements for someone facing cosmic evaluation, the Supreme Kai finally managed. "Just being transparent," Naruto replied calmly. "In my experience, honesty prevents complications later. The Grand Minister will address your concerns," Marcarita stated diplomatically. "Our role is merely to facilitate the evaluation process." "Of course," Naruto agreed with a respectful nod. "I'm ready whenever you are." As preparations began for the next phase of transport, Vados moved closer to Naruto. Speaking quietly while Marcarita consulted with the Supreme Kai. "Your directness is refreshing," she commented, "if potentially problematic in celestial circles. We operate on nuance and implication across millennia." "Never been good at subtle," Naruto admitted with a small smile. "Even after a century of practice. I've observed that sometimes systems benefit from direct challenges," Vados replied, her voice carrying layers of meaning beneath the simple statement. "Particularly systems that have remained unchanged for millions of years." Naruto studied her with new interest. "Sounds like personal experience talking." "Merely an observation," she replied smoothly. "As the eldest daughter of the Grand Minister, I've had opportunity to observe cosmic administration across substantial timeframes." The casual revelation of her lineage was clearly intentional, information shared for his benefit before the coming evaluation. "Appreciated," Naruto acknowledged with a slight nod. Their exchange was interrupted as Marcarita returned. "Transport is prepared. The Grand Minister awaits." As they moved toward the new dimensional passage, Naruto felt a curious sense of déjà vu. Throughout his life, he had repeatedly faced authorities and systems that underestimated him, from academy instructors to cages to gods. Each encounter had transformed both him and the system itself. Some patterns, it seemed, transcended even dimensional boundaries. The passage opened before them, revealing a void unlike anything he had perceived before, not emptiness, but pure potential, he canvas upon which reality itself was painted. At its center floated a structure of impossible geometry, the residence of beings who oversaw creation itself. Naruto took a deep breath, centering himself in the habits of his mortal life even as his celestial awareness expanded to encompass this new frontier. "Well," he said with characteristic determination, "let's see where this path leads." Flanked by the two angels, Naruto stepped into the void, his journey of transcendence continuing toward destinations even his newly expanded consciousness couldn't yet imagine. Chapter 1 End Chapter 2, Beyond the Familiar Stars. The world of void defied comprehension. Not truly empty, but a canvas of pure potential existing beyond conventional dimensions where reality itself originated. Naruto's enhanced perception struggled to interpret the impossible geometries surrounding him, structures that existed simultaneously in multiple states, pathways that connected without intersecting, and color that occupied spectrums his former mortal mind couldn't have conceived. Disorienting, isn't it? Vados observed, noting his expression. Even angels spend centuries acclimating to null space perception. It's like trying to see with your elbow, Naruto replied, his consciousness rapidly adapting new frameworks to process the information. Everything's there, but you're missing the right tools to interpret it. Marcarita raised an eyebrow, an unusual but apt metaphor. They approached what appeared to be a crystalline platform floating in nothingness, though Naruto's senses revealed it as an intersection point of multiple dimensional anchors, a place where even beings of their stature could safely exist within the void's overwhelming potential. The Celestial Pavilion, Marcarita announced as they landed. Antechamber to the Grand Minister's domain. The platform expanded upon their arrival, revealing intricate architecture that materialized from potential to actuality. Columns of light supported a dome that reflected realities from across existence, while the floor beneath them displayed cosmic cartography in real time, 12 distinct universes orbiting in perfect harmony. 3 figures awaited them, angels by their appearance, though each possessed unique characteristics. The first, tall and slender with a permanently serene expression, Naruto recognized immediately as Whis from Vados' memories that had transferred during their dimensional transit. The second, shorter with violet skin and an elaborate coiffure, radiated impatience. The third stood apart, his calculating gaze evaluating Naruto with unnerving intensity. Sisters, Whis greeted with formal cordiality. I see you've successfully retrieved our unexpected arrival. Unexpected is understating matters considerably. The Violet Angel interjected. Do you realize the protocols violated by this spontaneous ascension? Peace, Cognac, Vados replied smoothly. The Grand Minister will determine appropriate responses. Our task was retrieval, not judgment. Cognac sniffed disapprovingly but fell silent. The third angel approached, circling Naruto with analytical precision. Fascinating energy signature. Truly unprecedented integration patterns. His staff emitted soft chimes as it collected data. I am Martinu, Angel of Universe 12. Your emergence has presented quite the theoretical challenge. Naruto met his gaze directly. Wasn't trying to challenge anyone's theories. Just followed my path to its conclusion. An independent path to celestial status, Martinu mused. Statistically impossible, yet empirically undeniable. The paradox itself warrants study. You'll have ample opportunity for analysis later, Marcarita interrupted. The Grand Minister awaits. Whis nodded. Indeed. Father has postponed several universal audits to address this situation personally. The casual revelation of their familial relationship confirmed what Naruto had begun to suspect. The angels weren't merely colleagues but siblings. Part of a celestial family structure that paralleled mortal dynamics despite their cosmic status. As if summoned by the conversation, reality shifted around them. The pavilion's center opened, revealing a pathway of condensed light leading upward to a structure that hadn't been visible moments before, a floating palace of impossible architecture, where angles connected in ways that should have been mathematically impossible. A figure descended the pathway, his approach causing even the angels to straighten their postures. Though similar in appearance to the others, something in his bearing communicated authority beyond question. Each step he took seemed to stabilize reality around him, as if his very presence imposed order on the void's chaotic potential. The Grand Minister, Vados whispered unnecessarily. The cosmic official stopped before them, his perpetually serene expression revealing nothing of his thoughts as he studied Naruto. When he spoke, his voice carried harmonics that conveyed meaning beyond mere words. Naruto Uzumaki, he said, the name resonating with implications of identity that transcended simple nomenclature. Your emergence presents us with an unprecedented situation. Naruto bowed respectfully, recognizing authority without surrendering his own presence. Seems I have a talent for the unprecedented. A flick, of something, perhaps amusement, crossed the Grand Minister's face before it returned to impassive serenity. Indeed, walk with me. The invitation clearly excluded the others, who remained on the A villain as Naruto followed the Grand Minister up the pathway of light. As they ascended, the noise of existence itself seemed to dim, creating a pocket of perfect clarity. For 10 million years, the Grand Minister began conversationally. I have overseen the cosmic hierarchy without encountering a being like yourself. Mortals who achieve godhood through established channels, certainly. Appoint. Destroyers and creators who ascend through proper procedures, of course. But never a spontaneous celestial emergence without external elevation. I didn't know it was impossible, Naruto replied honestly. Just follow the energy to its source. Therein lies the curiosity, the Grand Minister responded. The energy you followed shouldn't have been perceptible to mortal consciousness, Riga. Less of your realm's particular system. They reached the palace entrance, passing through membranes of reality that analyzed Naruto's composition at levels beyond molecular. Inside, the space expa. NDED impossibly. Vaulted ceilings displaying the birth and death of stars, walls that shifted between solid matter and pure energy, floors that revealed the quantum foundations of existence with each step. The Grand Minister led him to a central chamber where a simple table appeared, 2 chairs materializing on opposite sides. The cosmic official gestured for Naruto to sit, an oddly mundane action in such extraordinary surroundings. Your world's chakra, the Grand Minister continued once they were seated, is a fascinating variant of universal energy. Originally introduced by extra-dimensional entities you called Otsutsuki, yes. Quote, Naruto nodded, unsurprised by the being's knowledge. They came seeking power from our world's divine tree. The Otsutsuki clan has caused similar disruptions across multiple universal sectors. The Grand Minister noted, typically, we allow natural correction to address their interventions. However, your case suggests their tampering created an unexpected pathway to celestial awareness. He waved a hand, creating a display between them, a perfect model of Naruto's world, down to individual chakra lines running through the planet itself. Your civilization developed unique methods of manipulating this introduced energy, the Grand Minister observed. But you personally discovered something beyond technique. You found the connective substrate Lin. King your world's chakra to fundamental cosmic energy. Through sage meditation, Naruto confirmed. At first, I thought I was just connecting more deeply to natural energy. But over decades, I began perceiving layers beneath what we called nature, the quantum framework holding reality together. The Grand Minister nodded, and instead of merely observing, you initiated integration. Your Conscio, USNESS expanded to operate at celestial frequency. It wasn't instantaneous, Naruto clarified. Decades of incremental perception shifts, each building on the last. Eventually, the transformation reached critical threshold. Creating ripples across 12 universes, the Grand Minister concluded, alerting every angel to an unexpected emergence. He leaned forward slightly, his serene express. Scion unchanged yet somehow communicating increased intensity. Which brings us to our current dilemma. What to do with you, Naruto Uzumaki? The chamber's atmosphere shifted subtly, reality itself aiming to hold its breath as the Grand Minister continued. Cosmic hierarchy requires clear categorization. Gods of creation, gods of destruction, angels, kais, each with defined roles and limitations. You fit none of these established categories, yet possess power and awareness reserved for celestial beings. I'm not looking to disrupt your system, Naruto offered. Just to understand my new place in it. Noble sentiment, the Grand Minister acknowledged. However, intention and cosmic impact don't always align. Unclassified celestial entities represent potential instability. Naruto Riko. GNIZED, the implicit threat beneath the calm statement. Despite his newfound powers, he sat before a being whose authority extended across 12 universes, who had overseen cosmic order for millions of years. The discussion was diplomatic, but the underlying message was clear: conform or face consequences. Yet conformity had never been Naruto's strength. With respect, he said carefully, I understand the need for order. But forcing unique elements into standardized categories sometimes weakens the system rather than strengthening it. Rather than offense, the Grand Minister's expression held the first hint of genuine interest. Elaborate. Naruto gathered his thoughts, drawing on both his mortal experiences and newly expanded awareness. In my world, we initially viewed the tailed Beasts as weapons to be controlled, forcing unique entities into roles that didn't fit their true nature. This created instability rather than preventing it. He gestured to the display between them, which shifted to show the history of Jinchuriki and tailed beasts. When we finally recognized them as partners rather than tools, accepting their uniqueness instead of suppressing it, we achieved harmony that benefited everyone. You suggest cosmic hierarchy might benefit from similar flexibility? The Grand Minister asked, though his tone revealed nothing of his thoughts on this radical proposition. I suggest that unprecedented situations might require unprecedented solutions, Naruto replied. Creating a new category rather than forcing a misfit. The Grand Minister studied him silently for several moments, his ancient eyes seeing beyond physical form to the essence of the being before him. Finally, he nodded once. A perspective worth consideration, he acknowledged, rising from his seat. However, such decisions aren't mine alone to make. The Omni King must be consulted regarding any potential adjustments to cosmic categorization. The implication sent a ripple of unease. Rough Naruto despite his newfound celestial nature. Even with limited exposure to this realm, he understood that the Omni King represented authority beyond comprehension, a being who could erase universes with a thought. When will this consultation occur? He asked, maintaining outward calm. Immediately, the Grand Minister replied. Zeno-sama has expressed curiosity about your emergence. It would be unwise to keep him waiting. Before Naruto could respond, reality shifted around them. The palace chamber dissolved, reforming into an entirely different space, a vast hall of impossible proportions, where pillars of light supported a ceiling that displayed the entire multiverse in real time. At the hall's center floated a simple throne, occupied by what appeared to be a small, blue-skinned child with enigmatic eyes that contained entire galaxies. The Grand Minister approached the throne and bowed with perfect formality. Zeno-sama, I present Naruto Uzumaki, the anomalous celestial emergence from Universe 11. Naruto followed, bowing respectfully while his enhanced senses tried to comprehend the being before him. Despite the childlike appearance, Zeno's true nature defied perception. A consciousness so vast that even Naruto's newly expanded awareness could grasp only fragments of its totality. The unusual one, Zeno observed, his voice simultaneously childish and ancient. Come closer. Naruto approached the throne, maintaining respectful posture without showing fear. As he drew nearer, Zeno leaned forward with open curiosity. You were mortal, the Omni King stated. Now you're not. How did you do that? The directness of the question, devoid of cosmic terminology or diplomatic nuance, caught Naruto by surprise. He found himself responding with equal straightforwardness. I followed the energy to its source, he explained. First through sage meditation, then by exploring deeper layers of reality until I connected with the cosmic foundation. Without permission, Zeno added, though his tone suggested fascination rather than disapproval. I didn't know permission was required, Naruto admitted. In my world, seeking understanding is encouraged, not restricted. Zeno tilted his head, studying Naruto with unnerving intensity. You're different from other celestials. Not just your energy, your thinking. I carried my mortal perspective with me, Naruto confirmed. My connections, experiences, and values shaped who I am. I didn't want to lose that, even while gaining cosmic awareness. Interesting, Zeno declared, floating up from his throne to circle Naruto. Most who reach godhood want to forget being mortal. You don't. Being mortal taught me everything important, Naruto replied. Compassion, perseverance, the value of connections. Why abandon what makes life meaningful just because my perception expanded? The Omni King completed his circuit, returning to hover directly before Naruto's face. His childlike features revealed no thing of his thoughts as he extended a small hand, touching Naruto's forehead with surprising gentleness. The contact initiated a connection beyond physical, Naruto's consciousness briefly interfacing with something so vast it defied comprehension. In that moment, he perceived the entirety of Zeno's domain, the true nature of the multiverse, and the burden of absolute authority carried by this childlike deity. When the connection broke, Naruto staggered slightly, overwhelmed by the experience. He kept himself, Zeno announced to the Grand Minister. Most interesting. Not God, not angel, not destroyer. Something new. Indeed, Zeno-sama, the Grand Minister agreed. Which presents us with the question of classification within cosmic hierarchy. Zeno returned to his throne, expression thoughtful. New things need new places. He pointed at Naruto. He will be the first celestial sage. The declaration hung in the air like a physical presence, reality itself seeming to acknowledge the creation of a new cosmic category. The Grand Minister's composure slipped momentarily, revealing genuine surprise before returning to serene acceptance. As you wish, Zeno-sama, he responded with a bow. Shall I establish parameters for this new classification? Make them together, Zeno directed, gesturing between the Grand Minister and Naruto. He understands his nature better than we do. The Omni King's attention shifted, his gaze becoming distant as if perceiving events beyond their immediate reality. Interesting times coming. The unusual one will be useful. With that cryptic statement, Zeno waved a hand dismissively. You may go. Come play games with me sometime, celestial sage. I want to hear about being mortal. Recognizing dismissal, the Grand Minister bowed deeply before guiding Naruto from the hall. As they departed, reality shifted once more, returning them to the pavilion where the angels awaited. The gathered celestials straightened as they appeared, attention. Focused on the Grand Minister for indication of the meeting's outcome. Instead of speaking immediately, he turned to Naruto. It seems, Naruto Uzumaki, that your suggestion of creating a new category rather than forcing a misfit has found favor with Zeno-sama himself. Murmurs of surprise rippled through the assembled angels. Konyak looked particularly disturbed by this announcement. Zeno-sama has designated you as the first celestial sage, the Grand Minister continued, a new classification within cosmic hierarchy. We are to establish parameters for this position collaboratively, recognizing the unique nature of your ascension and abilities. A new classification, Whis repeated, his perpetual calm giving way to genuine astonishment. In all of recorded cosmic history, there has never been. Unprecedented indeed, Vados murmured, though Naruto detected a note of satisfaction in her voice. Marcarita stepped forward. What are the immediate implications, Father? Assignment, jurisdiction, protocols. To be determined, the Grand Minister replied. For now, our new celestial sage requires orientation to cosmic operations. He possesses celestial awareness but lacks contextual knowledge of multiversal administration. He turned to address the assembled angels. Martinu, prepare comprehensive data packages on cosmic hierarchy and protocols. Konyak, notify the gods of destruction regarding this development. Whis, arrange appropriate accommodations within the celestial realm. Each angel acknowledged their assignments with formal bows before departing via dimensional transit, leaving only Marcarita, Vados, and the Grand Minister with Naruto. As Universe 11's attendant, Marcarita will serve as your primary guide to celestial operations, the Grand Minister informed Naruto. Vados has requested secondary assignment to your orientation, given her particular interest in your unique development path. Both female angels nodded in acknowledgement, though Naruto noticed the subtle competitive tension between them had intensified. We will reconvene tomorrow to begin establishing parameters for your position, the Grand Minister continued. Until then, just acclimating to celestial perception and reviewing fundamental cosmic principles. With that, he inclined his head politely before ascending back toward his palace, leaving Naruto alone with the two angels. Well, Naruto said after a moment of silence, that went differently than expected. You have a remarkable talent for understatement, Marcarita observed. In 10 million years, Zeno-sama has never created a new cosmic classification. The implications are significant, Vados added. Every celestial being across 12 universes will be assessing what this means for established power dynamics. Naruto ran a hand through his white hair, a habit carried over from his mortal days. I was just hoping to avoid being erased for breaking cosmic protocols I didn't know existed. Instead, you've been elevated to a position with no precedent, Marcarita noted, her tone suggesting she hadn't decided whether this was problematic or advantageous. Which leaves the question of your immediate integration. In plain terms, Vados clarified, seeing Naruto's questioning look, where do you go from here? Even celestial beings require domicile and orientation. Naruto hadn't considered such practical matters, his focus having been on surviving the immediate evaluation. I hadn't thought that far ahead. Is there a standard procedure for newly elevated beings? Typically, EU godly entities undergo centuries of training within their assigned universe's sacred world before assuming duties, Marcarita explained. However, your situation lacks precedent. Vados tapped her staff thoughtfully against the crystalline floor. Perhaps temporary residence in neutral territory while orientation proceeds. The celestial nexus would provide access to cosmic information systems, while maintaining appropriate separation from individual universal jurisdictions. Marcarita considered this suggestion reasonable, though unprecedented. The nexus is typically reserved for angels during conclave periods. Everything about this situation is unprecedented, Vados countered smoothly. Father approved my involvement in his orientation, which logically extends to accommodations arrangements. Naruto watched their exchange with growing fascination. Despite their celestial status and millions of years of existence, the angels displayed recognizably personal dynamics, professional rivalry, territorial considerations, and subtle power plays that reminded him of diplomatic negotiations among cages. If I might suggest, he interjected gently, I learn best through direct experience rather than theoretical study. While I appreciate access to information systems, actual observation of cosmic operations would be more effective. Both angels turned to him, seemingly surprised by his input. An unusual approach to celestial orientation, Marcarita commented. Traditionally, new entities master theory before practical application. I've never been great with traditional approaches, Naruto admitted with a slight smile. Throughout my life, I've learned through doing, often alongside those with more experience. Vados studied him with renewed interest. You propose apprenticeship rather than academic instruction. Exactly, Naruto confirmed. Shadowing both of you as you perform your duties would teach me more than years of reading cosmic manuals. The angels exchanged glances, a silent communication passing between them that Naruto couldn't interpret despite his enhanced perception. Such an arrangement would be irregular, Marcarita stated finally. But given your unique circumstances, perhaps appropriate. I will consult with Father regarding the proposal. In the meantime, Vados added, the celestial nexus remains the logical temporary domicile. Shall we proceed there for initial orientation? Naruto nodded, grateful for the practical suggestion amid the overwhelming newness of his situation. Lead the way. The celestial nexus defied conventional description. Not a structure so much as an intersection of dimensional frequencies, it existed simultaneously in multiple states of reality while remaining accessible to celestial consciousness. As they materialized within its impossible architecture, Naruto's enhanced perception struggled to interpret surroundings that constantly shifted between forms. Disorienting at first, Vados acknowledged, noting his expression. The nexus responds to observer perception, which can create feedback loops for newly ascended beings. Focus on functional intent rather than physical form, Marcarita advised. The architecture will stabilize once your conceptual frameworks align with celestial norms. Naruto nodded, adjusting his perception as suggested. Gradually, the swirling chaos solved into comprehensible spaces, a central atrium surrounded by chambers that served specific functions, all connected by pathways of condensed light. Better, he confirmed, like adjusting to genjutsu, but on a cosmic scale. An apt comparison, Vados noted. Reality here is partly consensus-based, defined by collective celestial perception rather than fixed physical laws. They guided him through the central atrium, where hovering displays showed real-time information from across the 12 universes, power fluctuations, timeline variations, mortal development indices, and countless Her metrics that Naruto couldn't yet interpret. The Cosmic Observatory, Marcarita explained. Primary information nexus for cross-universal monitoring. Angels maintain awareness of significant developments throughout their assigned universes, Vados added. The nexus collates this information for higher-level pattern analysis. Naruto studied the displays with growing fascination. Moni tour every inhabited world across 12 universes. Not individually, Marcarita clarified. Automated systems track evolutionary patterns, power developments, and potential threats to cosmic balance. Direct observation occurs only when significant anomalies emerge. Like spontaneous celestial ascension, Naruto noted with self-deprecating humor. Precisely, Vados confirmed, a hint of amusement in her voice. Your emergence registered as a Class 1 cosmic anomaly, the highest priority classification. They continued through the Nexus, passing chambers dedicated to various cosmic functions. Universal archives containing records spanning billions of years, calibration centers where reality itself was fine-tuned, and meditation spaces where angels could synchronize with cosmic frequencies. Your temporary quarters, Marcarita announced as they reached a chamber near the Nexus periphery. Unlike the shifting nature of other spaces, this room maintained stable form, a simple but elegant dwelling with views that opened onto the void between universes. The environment will adapt to your preferences as your celestial signature stabilizes, Vados explained. Consider it a blank canvas for your consciousness to shape. Naruto entered the space, feeling it respond subtly to his presence. The initially neutral decor began shifting, incorporating elements that reflected his essence, warm earth tones, organic patterns reminiscent of chakra flows, and subtle references to his mortal world's aesthetic. Interesting choices, Marcarita observed, watching the transformation. Most newel. Why elevated beings gravitate toward cosmic abstractions, yet your environmental preferences remain firmly anchored in mortal experience. I told Zeno-sama, Naruto replied, I don't want to abandon W. Hat makes life meaningful just because my perception expanded. A philosophy that clearly resonates with your fundamental nature, Vados noted, studying how the room continued adapting to his presence. Your celestial signature maintains strong connection to your mortal origins despite the transformation. Naruto moved to the chamber's edge, where transparent barriers separated the stable interior from the void beyond. The view was simultaneously terrifying and beautiful, endless potential stretching infinitely in all directions, punctuated by the 12 universes floating like perfect spheres in the cosmic ocean. It's humbling, he murmured. All my life, I thought our world was everything. Even when we learned about other dimensions, we never imagined this. Most mortal civilizations follow similar patterns of expanding awareness, Marcarita commented, joining him at the barrier. From believing their planet as the universe's center to recognizing their insignificance within greater cosmic structure. Not insignificance, Naruto corrected gently. Just part of something larger. Every perspective has value, from the smallest life form to the broadest cosmic view. Vados regarded him with increased interest. A remarkably integrated philosophy for a newly ascended being. Most struggle with reconciling their former limitations against sudden cosmic awareness. I've had practice reconciling different perspectives, Naruto explained. First with Kurama, then with other tailed beasts, later with entire nations. Understanding that different viewpoints can all be valid simultaneously has been central to my path. As if summoned by the mention, golden energy swirled around Naruto, coalescing into Kurama's translucent form. The massive fox materialized partially, his head and front paws extending into the chamber while the rest of his body remained energy. Speaking of different perspectives, the fox rumbled, this realm is giving me a headache. Too many frequencies overlapping. Marcarita stepped back in surprise, while Vados leaned forward with open curiosity. Fascinating manifestation, the teal angel observed. Your consciousness maintains perfect synchronization despite separate identities. We've had decades of practice, Naruto replied with a fond glance at his oldest companion. Centuries, Kurama corrected gruffly. And still you mana. Defined the most complicated situation possible. The symbiotic entity maintains independent personality construct, Marcarita noted clinically. Yet shares your celestial frequency without disruption. Kurama turned massive eyes toward her. I have a name, Angel. And I'm not a construct or entity, I'm Kurama, the nine-tailed fox. My apologies, Marcarita replied, genuine surprise showing at being directly addressed. I didn't mean to offend. Kurama's been with me since birth, Naruto explained. Our chakra and consciousness have been linked so long that ascension affected us both, though differently. The transformation reconfigured our connection, Kurama added. Before, we shared a physical vessel. Now we share a dimensional frequency. Vados approached the fox manifestation, studying it with unabashed interest. A naturally evolved energy being that achieved celestial resonance through symbiotic connection. The statistical improbability is astronomical. Story of my life, Naruto said with a shrug. Beating impossible odds is practically my specialty. A quality that will likely prove useful in your new position, Vados observed. The role of celestial sage remains undefined, creating both freedom and challenge. Speaking of which, Marcarita interjected, orientation should begin immediately. The Grand Minister will expect progress by tomorrow's consultation. She gestured, creating a floating display of complex symbols. These are the fundamental cosmic protocols governing celestial operations. Understanding their structure is essential for functioning within the hierarchy. Naruto studied the display, his enhanced perception allowing him to process information at accelerated rates. The symbols rearranged themselves as he observed, forming G patterns that corresponded to concepts rather than linear language. It's like Fuinjutsu, he realized aloud. Not just symbols representing ideas, but actual power constructs that influence reality directly. An apt comparison, Vados confirmed. Cosmic protocol language doesn't merely describe reality, it partially defines it through observer consensus. For the next several hours, Naruto immersed himself in celestial education. Absorbing information about cosmic structure, universal governance, and the intricate balance maintained by the heavenly hierarchy. Both angels proved knowledgeable instructors, though their teaching styles differed significantly. Marcarita emphasized precise definitions and clear categorization, her explanations methodical and comprehensive. Vados favored conceptual understanding over memorization, often using metaphors that bridged celestial concepts with experiences Naruto might recognize from his mortal life. Throughout the session, Naruto noticed subtle competitive tension between them, each trying to provide more valuable insights, occasionally contradicting the other's explanations with clarifications that presented alternative perspectives. The relationship between destroyer gods and creation deities isn't truly antagonistic, Marcarita explained at one point. Rather, they represent complementary functions within a balanced system. Though in practice, Vados added smoothly, personality conflicts do emerge. My brother Whis has stories about Lord Beerus and the Supreme Kai that would illustrate the point quite colorfully. Anecdotal exceptions don't invalidate systemic principles, Marcarita countered with cool precision. For orientation purposes, understanding ideal function takes precedence over operational variations. Unless those variations are so common they become de facto standard, Vados replied, her tone light yet pointed. Theory divorced from practical application offers limited value. Naruto listened, to their increasingly tense exchange with growing amusement, reminded of his early days mediating between feuding advisors as Hokage. The realization that even cosmic beings with millions of years of existence still engaged in professional rivalry was oddly comforting. Some aspects of consciousness remained consistent regardless of dimensional status. I appreciate both perspectives, he interjected diplomatically. The theoretical framework and real-world applications seem equally important for understanding cosmic operations. Both angels paused, seemingly reminded of his presence after becoming absorbed in their disagreement. A reasonable assessment, Marcarita acknowledged, composing herself. Integration of theory and practice does provide optimal understanding. Indeed, Vados agreed, though her slight smile suggested she considered the exchange a minor victory. As the orientation continued, Naruto gradually built a functional understanding of cosmic hierarchy, the carefully balanced system of creation, preservation, and destruction that maintained multiversal harmony. Yet questions remained, particularly regarding his own unprecedented position within this ancient structure. The role of celestial sage remains undefined, he noted during a brief pause in instruction. Where exactly do I fit within this hierarchy? What function am I meant to serve? The angels hanged glances before Marcarita responded carefully. That determination awaits tomorrow's consultation with the Grand Minister. Zeno-sama created your classification, but its parameters require formalization. Though one might reasonably infer certain functional possibilities, Vados added thoughtfully. The term, sage, implies wisdom, perspective, and balance, qualities distinct from the specia. List functions of destruction or creation deities. Perhaps a consultative role, Marcarita suggested, warming to the speculation. Offering unique insight derived from your unusual ascension path. Or an intermediary function, Vados countered, bridging mortal and celestial realms through perspective that spans both existences. Their discussion was interrupted by a subtle dimensional shift. T as another presence arrived at the chamber entrance, Whis, his perpetually serene expression revealing nothing of his purpose. Apologies for the intrusion, he said with formal politeness. The ND Minister requests Marcarita's presence regarding destroyer succession in Universe 11. Apparently, Lord Belmod's retirement plans have accelerated in light of recent developments. Marcarita straightened, surprise briefly crossing her features before returning to professional composure. Of course. Please inform Father I'll attend immediately. She turned to Naruto with a formal bow. I must temporarily withdraw from orientation duties. Vados will continue in my absence. No problem, Naruto assured her. Cosmic business takes priority. With a final nod, Marcarita departed, following his through a dimensional passage that closed behind them. Once they were alone, Vados's posture relaxed subtly. An interesting development. Belmod has threatened retirement for millennia without action. Your emergence seems to have prompted decision. Is that good or bad? Naruto asked, genuinely uncertain of his impact on cosmic politics. Neither inherently, Vados replied, moving to adjust the information displays to a more conversational arrangement. Change inevitably creates both opportunity and disruption. She gestured toward comfortable seating that materialized from the chamber's responsive architecture. Perhaps we might continue orientation less formally. Official protocols are necessary background, but understanding celestial society requires different context. Naruto accepted the invitation, settling into a chair that adapted perfectly to his form. I'd appreciate that. Organizational charts only tell you so much about how things actually work. Vados smiled, expression transforming her usually composed features. Precisely. Millions of years of cosmic administration have created layers of unwritten rules and relationships that often prove more influential than formal structure. She tapped her staff lightly, transforming the information displays into a three-dimensional model of the celestial hierarchy, highlighting interconnections that hadn't been visible in official diagrams. Angels technically serve destroyer gods, she explained, yet maintain separate authority through direct lineage from the Grand Minister. Supreme Kais officially guide universal development, but often defer to angel judgment on evolutionary direction. Politics exists even at cosmic levels, Naruto observed with a knowing smile. Inevitably, Vados confirmed, quote, consciousness naturally organizes into relationship patterns regardless of dimensional status. The difference is time frame. Celestial politics evolve over millions of years rather than mortal decades. She leaned forward slightly, her manner becoming more direct. Which brings us to your unusual position. Creating a new cosmic classification is unprecedented, yet Zeno-sama did so without hesitation after meeting you. That surprised me too, Naruto admitted. I was just hoping to avoid being erased for breaking rules I didn't know existed. Zeno-sama rarely takes direct interest in administrative matters, Vados explained. For him to personally designate your status suggests he perceived something significant in your nature, something beyond the simple fact of unauthorized ascension. Naruto considered this, remembering the brief mind-to-mind contact with the childlike deity. He seemed curious about mortal perspective, almost like he found it refreshing. Fascinating, Vados murmured. Zeno-sama has observed existence since its beginning, yet maintains childlike qualities that even angels don't fully understand. Perhaps your perspective offered novelty that appealed to that aspect of his nature. Or maybe he just liked that I didn't freak out when meeting him, Naruto suggested with characteristic directness. Vados laughed, a melodious sound that suggested genuine amusement rather than polite acknowledgement. A remarkably straightforward assessment, yet possibly accurate. Cosmic beings rarely encounter authentic reactions, surrounded as we are by protocol and deference. Her expression grew more thoughtful, which may hint at your potential function as celestial sage. Perhaps the cosmic hierarchy requires perspective untainted by millions of years of established patterns, fresh insight derived from mortal experience but elevated to celestial awareness. A cosmic outsider perspective, Naruto mused. Seeing patterns that those embedded in the system might miss. Precisely. Vados confirmed. Systems operating unchanged for millions of years inevitably develop blind spots, regardless of the participant's power or intelligence. She studied him with renewed interest. Your entire existence has been defined by transcending limitations and challenging established systems. From village outcast to leader, from mortal to celestial. Perhaps that quality itself is what Zeno-sama recognized as valuable. The observation resonated with Naruto's own understanding of his life path. Throughout his existence, he had repeatedly faced systems that underestimated or misunderstood him. The village that feared its Jinchuriki, the ninja world that dismissed an orphan's potential, gods who couldn't imagine mortal determination. Each encounter had transformed both him and the systems themselves. It's weird to think my entire life might have been preparation for this, he said after a moment of reflection. Every struggle, every breakthrough leading to something I couldn't have imagined. The most significant paths are rarely visible from their beginning, Vados replied. Even angels, with our cosmic perspective, cannot predict all possible futures, particularly those involving unprecedented variables. She rose gracefully, moving to the chamber's edge where the 12 universes were visible floating in the void. Which brings us to practical considerations. If your function involves providing fresh perspective on cosmic operations, you'll need first-hand observation of those operations. Back to my apprenticeship suggestion, Naruto noted, joining her at the barrier. Precisely. Theoretical knowledge provides foundation, but direct experience creates understanding. Vados turned to face him, her expression more serious than before. I propose beginning with observation of my duties in Universe 6 tomorrow, following your consultation with the Grand Minister. Wouldn't that conflict with Marcarita's orientation plan? Naruto asked, sensing potential tension. Universe 11 is currently preoccupied with destroyer succession, Vados replied smoothly. Practical observation could proceed in Universe 6 while those matters resolve. Then continue in Universe 11 when circumstances permit. Naruto studied her expression, recognizing the political maneuvering beneath the practical suggestion. You two have very different approaches to celestial duties, don't you? Vados smiled slightly, acknowledging his perception. Angels develop individual methodologies despite shared training. Marcarita favors structured hierarchy and clear protocols. I find value in adaptation and evolutionary perspective. And you think I'd benefit from experiencing both approaches? Inevitably, she confirmed. Your unique position will require understanding diverse cosmic methodologies to develop your own functional approach. Naruto considered the proposal, weighing potential political complications against educational benefits. Makes sense to me, as long as it doesn't create problems between you and Marcarita. Siblings have disagreed for millions of years without cosmic collapse, Vados assured him with subtle humor. Diversity of perspective strengthens the celestial hierarchy rather than weakening it, a principle that your own position embodies. Their conversation was interrupted by a subtle dimensional ripple as information updated on the Nexus displays. Vados turned toward the new data, her expression showing rare surprise. Interesting, she murmured. It seems news of your new classification has generated significant reaction across the 12 universes. The displays showed increased activity among various cosmic entities, gods of destruction holding emergency consultations, supreme Kais reviewing ancient texts, and even mortal civilizations with sufficient technology detecting energy fluctuations from the celestial realm. Word travels fast, Naruto observed. Celestial communication operates beyond space-time limitations. Vados explained. News of unprecedented developments propagates instantly across cosmic consciousness. She gestured toward specific activity patterns. Note the divergent reactions. Universe 7's destroyer, Beerus, appears concerned. Universe 2's Hereth seems intrigued. Universe 4's Quitella is already investigating potential implications for power balance. Seems have stirred up quite the hornet's nest without trying, Naruto noted with a hint of his old sheepishness. Change inevitably creates ripples, Vados replied. Particularly in systems accustomed to stability across millions of years. She turned to him, her expression thoughtful. Which brings us to an important consideration. How you present yourself initially to the various cosmic powers will significantly influence your effectiveness as celestial sage. First impressions matter even at cosmic scale, Naruto translated with a knowing smile. Precisely. Each destroyer and creator deity will assess whether your unprecedented position represents opportunity or threat to their interests. Vados tapped her staff lightly against the floor, creating ripples that formed into image projections of various cosmic entities. Lord Champa, my universe's destroyer, values directness and strength. Lord Beerus respects combat prowess above diplomacy. Hareth responds to beauty and harmony, while Quite La constantly seeks advantage through information. Naruto studied the projections, recognizing the familiar challenge of diplomatic relations despite the cosmic scale. Not so different from dealing with cages from different hidden villages. Each has their own values, concerns, and communication styles. An apt comparison, Vados acknowledged. Though these relationships span millions of years, and involve beings who can destroy galaxies with a thought, just means the stakes are higher, Naruto replied with characteristic determination. But the principles remain the same. Understand their perspective, find common ground. Build trust through consistency. Vados regarded him with increased respect. Your diplomatic experience may prove more relevant to cosmic operations than initially apparent. Perhaps your mortal leadership role prepared you for celestial function in ways we've yet to fully appreciate. Before Naruto could respond, another presence approached the chamber, Martinu. The analytical angel from their earlier meeting. He entered with formal precision, staff chiming softly as it recorded data. Celestial Sage, he greeted Naruto with a respectful nod. I've complete preliminary information packages as requested by the Grand Minister. He presented a crystalline sphere that pulsed with contained knowledge. This contains fundamental cosmic protocols, celestial cartography, and historical context for multiversal administration. Thank you, Naruto replied, accepting the sphere. As he touched it, information transferred directly to his consciousness, not as linear text but as integrated understanding that expanded his awareness of cosmic operations. Most efficient absorption pattern I've observed in a newly elevated being, Martinu noted with clinical interest. Your cognitive integration capabilities exceed standard parameters by approximately 73%. He's been demonstrating exceptional adaptation throughout orientation, Vados commented. Likely a function of his unique ascension path. Quote, a statistically valid hypothesis, Martinu agreed. Which reminds me of my secondary purpose here. He turned to Naruto. With your permission, I would like to conduct detailed analysis of your celestial composition. Such unprecedented development warrants thorough documentation. For scientific purposes, Naruto asked, primarily, though understanding, your unique integration pattern may provide insights relevant to cosmic stability monitoring. Martinu's formal demeanor softened slightly. In simpler terms, learning how you achieved the impossible. Might help us identify if others could follow similar paths. Naruto considered the request. Makes sense. Though I'm not sure how much help I'll be, most of my journey was intuitive rather than methodical. Intuitive processes often reveal patterns invisible to structured analysis, Martinu replied. If convenient, we could proceed with initial scans now, with more detailed examination following tomorrow's consultation. Naruto looked to Vados, who nodded slightly. Reasonable request. Martinu's analysis may provide insights useful for your consultation with Father. Sure, Naruto agreed. What do you need me to do? Simply maintain normal function while I record energy patterns, Martinu explained, adjusting his staff's settings. The orb atop it expanded, surrounding Naruto with gentle scanning energy that caused no discomfort. As the analysis proceeded, Martinu's expression showed increasing fascination. Extraordinary integration patterns. Your indigenous chakra system has reconfigured to function at celestial frequency while maintaining its original structural characteristics. Is that unusual? Naruto asked. Unprecedented, Martinu confirmed. Typically, Morta-L energy systems dissolve during celestial elevation, replaced entirely by cosmic frequency. Yours has adapted instead, creating a hybrid system that operates simultaneously at multiple dimensional levels. Vados observed the readings with interest, which likely explains his accelerated adaptation to celestial perception and function. Precisely, Martinu agreed. Rather than rebuilding conceptual frameworks from nothing, his consciousness is translating between familiar systems and new awareness. The analysis continued for several minutes, Martinu occasionally murmuring technical observations that meant little to Naruto despite his enhanced perception. Finally, the scanning energy receded, the angel's staff returning to normal. Most illuminating, Martinu concluded. I've collected sufficient preliminary data, though additional specific analysis would be valuable when convenient. No problem, Naruto assured him. Happy to help understand this process. Martinu bowed slightly. Your cooperation is appreciated. The data will be available for the Grand Minister's review before tomorrow's consultation. With that, he departed as formally as he had arrived, disappearing through a dimensional passage. He's intense, Naruto observed once they were alone. Martinu approaches everything as a theoretical problem to be analyzed, Vados explained with mild amusement. Even after millions of years, he maintains scientist enthusiasm for new phenomena. At least someone's excited about my existence instead of just concerned, Naruto noted wryly. Many are excited, Vados corrected. Though for varying reasons. Some see opportunity for cosmic evolution, others potential disruption to established power structures. She studied him thoughtfully. All recognize that your emergence represents significant change, regardless of specific function. Naruto moved back to the chamber's edge, gazing out at the 12 universes floating in the void. From this perspective, his home planet was invisible, a tiny speck within a vast cosmos that itself was merely one of 12. Yet despite this cosmic scale, he maintained connection to his origins, to the experiences and relationships that had shaped his journey. It's strange, he said after a moment. My entire life was about protecting my world, my people. Now I'm seeing existence from a perspective where single planets are barely visible. Yet you maintain connection to your origins, Vados observed. Most elevated beings discard mortal perspective as limited and irrelevant. Because it's not irrelevant, Naruto replied with conviction. Every level of existence has value and validity. The perspective of a single life on a single world matters just as much as cosmic overview, they're just different scales of the same reality. Vados regarded him with genuine interest. A philosophy that aligns remarkably well with your new designation as Celestial Sage. Perhaps Zeno-sama perceived this integrative perspective as valuable precisely because it differs from traditional celestial viewpoint. Maybe, Naruto acknowledged, or maybe he just thought it would be interesting to shake things up a bit. Vados smiled. An equally valid possibility. Zeno-sama's motives often remain mysterious even to those who have served him for millions of years. Their conversation drifted to other topics as orientation continued. Vados sharing insights about celestial society that wouldn't appear in official records, the personalities of various destroyer gods, the subtle rivalries between creator deities, and the complex dynamics among angel siblings who had existed since the dawn of the current multiverse. Throughout their discussion, Naruto integrated new information with his existing understanding, building mental frameworks that connected his mortal experience with cosmic awareness. The process felt natural despite its unprecedented nature, perhaps because his entire life had been defined by integration of seemingly contradictory elements. As celestial cycles shifted toward rest period, Vados prepared to depart. You should acclimate to your temporary quarters. Tomorrow's consultation will establish parameters for your new position, a significant event in cosmic history. No pressure, Naruto replied with a smile that carried echoes of his younger self. Indeed, Vados agreed, returning the smile with surprising warmth. Rest well, Celestial Sage. Your journey has only begun. After she departed, Naruto remained at the chamber's edge, gazing out at the multiverse while contemplating the extraordinary path that had led him here. From lonely orphan to Hokage to something beyond mortal comprehension, yet through it all, maintaining the core values that defined him. Quite the view, isn't it? Kurama materialized beside him, the fox's massive form adjusting to match Naruto's scale. Puts things in perspective, Naruto agreed. All those years fighting to save our world, and it's just one tiny speck in one universe out of 12. Doesn't make it less worth protecting, Kurama observed. Value isn't determined by size. Naruto smiled at his oldest companion. Wisdom from the Nine Tails. Who would have thought? Quote, I've had centuries to develop philosophical depth, the fox replied with mock dignity. Besides, someone has to keep you grounded now that you're hobnobbing with cosmic entities. They shared comfortable silence, watching the slow dance of universes in the void. Despite the overwhelming newness of his situation, Naruto felt a growing sense of purpose, as if his entire existence had been preparation for this unprecedented role. What do you think happens tomorrow? Kurama asked eventually. They'll try to fit me into their system somehow, Naruto replied thoughtfully. The question is whether I adapt to their structure or they adapt to me. Knowing your history, the fox rumbled, I'd bet on the latter. Naruto laughed, the sound carrying harmonics that resonated with cosmic frequencies. Maybe, or maybe we'll find a middle path that works for everyone. Always the diplomat, Kurama observed with gruff affection. Always the optimist, Naruto corrected. Some things don't change, even when everything else does. As celestial cycles shifted toward rest, Naruto turned from the view to explore his temporary quarters. The chamber had continued adapting to his presence, incorporating elements that reflected his essence, spaces for meditation that resembled his favorite spots on Hokage Mountain, comfortable areas reminiscent of his home in Konoha, and subtle details that connected to significant moments in his journey. Despite the overwhelming events of recent hours, he felt strangely at peace. The path before him remained undefined, his role as celestial sage still taking shape. Yet the core of who he was remained unchanged, still Naruto Uzumaki, still guided by the same values and determination that had defined his mortal existence. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new discoveries, and formal recognition of his unprecedented status. But tonight, in this moment between worlds, he simply existed, a being who had transcended mortal limitations while keeping hold of what made mortality meaningful. Whatever came next, he would face it as he had faced every challenge throughout his long and extraordinary life, with unwavering determination, adaptability, and the profound understanding that connection was the truest source of strength in any dimension. Chapter 2 and Chapter 3, The Trials of Divinity. The celestial nexus transformed during rest cycles, its impossible architecture shifting to match collective unconscious patterns of its inhabitants. As Naruto emerged from meditation, he no longer required sleep. In the traditional sense, he found his quarters suffused with dawn-like radiance despite the absence of any actual sun. The light possessed qualities beyond conventional spectrum, carrying harmonics that resonated with his elevated consciousness. Fascinating phenomenon, he murmured, studying how the illumination interacted with his physical form, creating subtle interference patterns that mapped his energy structure. Celestial ambient radiation, came Kurama's voice from within their shared consciousness. Responds differently to each entity based on resonance patterns. You've been studying, Naruto observed with amusement. The fox manifested partially, his massive head appearing beside Naruto. While you were processing your orientation materials, I was exploring information channels independently. Fascinating architecture in this realm, conceptual rather than physical. Always knew you were the intellectual one, Naruto teased. Kurama snorted, the sound carrying harmonic undertones that rippled through nearby energy fields. Someone needs to understand the theoretical aspects while you charm cosmic entities with your unorthodox methods. Their comfortable banter was interrupted by a subtle dimensional shift announcing arrival. Vados materialized at the chamber in trance, her formal attire immaculate as always, though Naruto noted subtle changes in the energy pattern surrounding her. Slightly brighter resonance suggesting heightened interest. Good cycle, celestial sage, she greeted with formal politeness that didn't quite mask genuine warmth. I trust acclamation proceeded well. Well enough, Naruto replied, rising to greet her. Though, morning, feels different when you don't actually sleep. Consciousness maintenance rather than unconscious restoration, Vados acknowledged. An adjustment for newly elevated beings, though your adaptation appears remarkably smooth. She turned to acknowledge Kurama with a respectful nod. Your partner has been accessing information channels independently. Hard to keep a nine-tailed fox contained, Naruto replied with a smile. He's always been curious beneath that gruff exterior. Merely practical research, Kurama rumbled. Though his tail swayed with poorly concealed pride at the recognition. Vados studied the fox manifestation with unabashed interest. Your consciousness architecture is unlike a thing in cosmic records, neither fully independent nor fully integrated. The symbiotic balance you've achieved defies conventional categorization. Story of our lives, Naruto commented. Indeed, Vados agreed. Which brings us to today's proceedings. The Grand Minister has scheduled your formal consultation for immediate commencement. Parameters for the Celestial Sage position will be established, followed by implementation trials. Quote, trials. Naruto asked, raising an eyebrow. Standard procedure for newly defined cosmic roles, Vados explained. Though typically conducted over centuries rather than compressed timeframes. Your unprecedented situation has prompted adjustments. Accelerated testing, Naruto translated. Not the first time I've dealt with unconventional examinations. Your orientation materials mention certain irregular assessment methods in your mortal history, Vados noted with subtle amusement. Creating shadow clones to defeat a teacher, developing original techniques during combat rather than beforehand, improvising solutions to seemingly impossible scenarios. My most effective learning never came from textbooks, Naruto confirmed. A methodology that appears consistent across dimensional states, Vados observed. Perhaps relevant to your function as Celestial Sage. Before Naruto could respond, another presence arrived, Marcarita, her expression professionally neutral though her energy patterns revealed subtle tension. Celestial Sage, she greeted formally. The Grand Minister awaits our presence. All preliminary evaluations have been compiled for today's consultation. Quote, her gaze shifted to Vados, noting her earlier arrival with barely concealed disapproval. I see preliminary orientation has resumed without notification. Airly confirming readiness for today's proceedings, Vados replied smoothly. Given your preoccupation with Universe 11's destroyer succession matters. Subtle energy fluctuations between the angels. Suggested underlying competition that their polite words masked. Naruto observed the exchange with interest, his enhanced perception detecting layers of millennia-old rivalry beneath professional courtesy. The succession matter has been temporarily suspended pending today's outcome, Marcarita stated. The Grand Minister deemed establishment of the Celestial Sage position priority over routine administrative transitions. She turned back to Naruto. We should proceed without delay. Cosmic authorities from multiple universes have requested observation rights for the consultation. Quite the audience, Naruto noted. Maintaining outward calm despite the implications. His formal recognition would occur before representatives from across the multiverse, establishing initial impressions would influence cosmic relationships for eons. Unprecedented events warrant widespread attention, Vados commented. Spontaneous celestial ascension has generated considerable interest across universal jurisdictions. And concern, Marcarita added pointedly. Cosmic stability relies on predictable processes and clearly defined hierarchies. Which will be addressed through today's proceedings, Vados countered smoothly. Shall we? Together they departed the chamber, traveling through the nexus along pathways of condensed light. As they moved, Naruto noticed increased activity through the structure. Other angels passing through dimensional intersections, administrator deities monitoring universal displays, and various cosmic functionaries preparing for the historic consultation. They arrived at a massive chamber Naruto hadn't seen during his orientation, a perfect sphere where reality itself seemed particularly malleable, surfaces reflecting not light but possibility. At its center floated a circular platform surrounded by tiered observation galleries already filling with diverse cosmic entities. The conclave sphere, Marcarita explained, reserved for matters of multiversal significance. Its architecture allows simultaneous perception across multiple dimensional frequencies, Vados added. Ensuring all observers experience proceedings according to their native cognitive frameworks. The Grand Minister awaited them at the central platform, his serene expression revealing nothing of his thoughts regarding the historic proceedings about to commence. Beside him stood Wissen Martinu, representing different facets of celestial administration. As Naruto approached with his angel escorts, a subtle hush fell over the assembled observers. His enhanced percepti on-catalogued their diverse nature, gods of destruction projecting barely restrained power, supreme Kais with their ancient wisdom, angel attendants maintaining perfect neutrality, and various cosmic administrators whose functions he couldn't yet identify. Naruto Uzumaki, the Grand Minister greeted as they reached the platform. Designated Celestial Sage by decree of Zeno-sama. We gather to establish parameters for this unprecedented classification within cosmic hierarchy. His voice carried perfect clarity to every observer despite varying dimensional perception. As he spoke, reality itself seemed to acknowledge the proceedings, significance, the chamber's architecture becoming more defined as cosmic law prepared to incorporate new elements. Present yourself, the Grand Minister instructed. Understanding the ceremonial nature of the request, Naruto stepped forward. Drawing on both his mortal diplomatic experience and newly acquired celestial awareness, he allowed his energy to manifest visibly. Chakra pathways illuminating beneath his skin, sage patterns appearing along his form, and subtle harmonics resonating through the chamber. "I am Naruto Uzumaki," he stated, his voice carrying with newfound harmonic depth. Former 7th Hokage of Konohagakure, Sage of Six Paths, and now Celestial Sage by recognition of Zeno-sama. His simple introduction caused ripples of reaction among the observers. Surprise at his acknowledgement of mortal origins, recognition of the confidence behind his self-identification, and subtle energy fluctuations as cosmic entities reassessed their initial impressions. The Grand Minister nodded, apparently satisfied with his presentation. "The preliminary evaluations have been completed and reviewed. Your celestial status is confirmed through multiple verification protocols. The question before us concerns function, jurisdiction, and hierarchical placement." He gestured, creating a complex multidimensional display between them, a perfect model of cosmic structure showing established relationships between various celestial entities. A vacant position illuminated near the upper hierarchy, connected to multiple jurisdictional domains yet distinct from established categories. Based on preliminary assessment and Zeno-sama's designation, we propose the following parameters for the position of Celestial Sage, the Grand Minister announced. Advisory function across universal boundaries, operating independently of destroyer-creator dichotomy while maintaining balanced perspective on cosmic evolution. The display shifted, highlighting connection points between the new position and existing hierarchical structures. Authority to observe all universal jurisdictions without direct intervention rights. Consultative status with gods of destruction and creation. Independent reporting access to the Grand Minister regarding multiversal patterns. As the parameters appeared, Naruto studied them carefully, recognizing both opportunities and limitations within the proposed structure. The position offered unprecedented freedom to move between universes and observe cosmic operations, yet carefully restricted direct intervention powers that might disrupt established balances. Additionally, the Grand Minister continued, maintenance of connection to original mortal realm for perspective integration purposes, subject to non-interference protocols regarding natural development. This last addition caught Naruto's attention immediately. Official sanction to maintain his connection to Earth rather than severing ties as was standard for elevated beings. He glanced briefly toward Vados, suspecting her influence in this unusual concession. These parameters require demonstration of capability before full implementation, the Grand Minister concluded. Therefore, a series of trials has been designed to evaluate your suitability for the proposed function. He turned to address the assembled observers. Representatives from each universe may submit trial proposals according to established protocols. The Celestial Sage will undergo evaluation in wisdom, power, character, and perspective integration, the four foundational qualities of the position. The announcement prompted immediate activity among the observers, particularly the gods of destruction whose energy signatures flared with sudden interest. Naruto noted varying reactions, some clearly preparing challenging trials, others appearing more curious than testing, a few radiating distinct hostility toward his unprecedented elevation. "Do you accept these proposed parameters and evaluation process?" the Grand Minister asked, returning his attention to Naruto. Naruto considered the question carefully, aware that his response would establish precedent for the position itself. "I accept the parameters with one clarification," he replied after a moment. "Regarding observation without intervention, I would request definition of circumstances where exception might be warranted. No system functions perfectly without adaptation to unexpected scenarios." His response caused murmurs among the observers, some approving of his foresight, others concerned by his immediate questioning of limitations. The Grand Minister's expression remained unchanged, though Naruto detected subtle shifts in his energy patterns suggesting intellectual interest. "A reasonable clarification," the Grand Minister acknowledged. "Exceptional circumstances warranting intervention would include imminent threat to multiversal stability, direct request from authorized cosmic authority, or scenarios specifically identified by Zeno-sama as requiring Celestial Sage perspective." He adjusted the parameter display to incorporate this clarification. "With this addition, do you accept the proposed framework?" "I do," Naruto confirmed, bowing respectfully to formalize his acceptance. Then let the establishment trials commence, the Grand Minister declared. Beginning with the trial of wisdom, proposed by Universe 10's Supreme Kai. At his announcement, a diminutive figure rose from the observation gallery, an elderly Kai with ancient eyes that belied his small stature. He approached the central platform with measured dignity, carrying what appeared to be a crystalline cube that pulsed with stored knowledge. Gawasu, Supreme Kai of Universe 10, Marcarita whispered to Naruto. Eldest among current Kais, known for philosophical depth and ethical examination. The elderly Kai bowed respectfully before presenting the crystal. The trial of wisdom tests not mere knowledge, but understanding of cosmic principles through practical application. This cube of paradox contains 10,000 years of ethical dilemmas from across multiversal history, each requiring Bala NCED judgment beyond simplistic solutions. He placed the cube on the platform between them. As Supreme Kai, I have spent millennia contemplating these scenarios. The fastest resolution by any C entity required 3 centuries of continuous meditation. A subtle challenge underpinned his words, though Naruto detected no malice, merely scholarly interest in testing unprecedented celestial emergence against established standards. How would you like me to proceed? Naruto asked, studying the cube with his enhanced perception. Its structure contained nested dimensional folds, each containing experiential scenarios rather than theoretical problems. Place your hands upon the cube, Gawasu instructed. Your consciousness will be drawn into the first scenario. Resolution of each dilemma will advance you to the next, until all are addressed or comprehension fails. Naruto nodded, understanding the nature of the challenge. Without hesitation, he placed his hands on the crystal surface, immediately feeling his awareness drawn inward as reality around him dissolved. He found himself standing on a barren planet between 2 vast civilizations on the brink of mutual annihilation. Both societies had developed weapons capable of destroying not only each other but potentially destabilizing their entire universal sector. Each believed their total destruction of the other was the only path to survival. Based on millennia of conflict and immutable ideological differences. As Naruto's consciousness integrated with the scenario, he gained immediate understanding of both civilizations, their histories, values, fears, and the complex web of misunderstandings that had led to this final confrontation. He also perceived the cosmic implications of their conflict, how their mutual destruction would create ripple effects across thousands of worlds, potentially triggering evolutionary regression across an entire galactic sector. The traditional Supreme Kai approach would be non-intervention, allowing natural consequences to unfold regardless of cost. The Destroyer approach would be preemptive elimination of both civilizations to prevent larger instability. Both solutions preserved cosmic order at the expense of countless lives and evolutionary potential. Instead of accepting either established approach, Naruto analyzed the root causes of conflict. Using his enhanced perception, he identified key individuals within each civilization whose personal experiences and perspectives created opportunity for breakthrough. Rather than grand diplomatic gestures or imposed solutions, he crafted subtle interventions targeting these individuals, revealing truth through personal experience rather than external authority. The scenario shifted, showing how these precisely targeted revelations created cascading changes throughout both societies. Not immediate harmony, but the crucial introduction of doubt regarding absolute positions. Enough to create space for alternative paths to emerge organically from within rather than imposed from without. The first paradox dissolved, immediately replaced by another, then another, and another. Each scenario presented increasingly complex ethical dilemmas that tested not just problem-solving but underlying philosophy of existence. Some involved conflicts between cosmic laws and compassionate action, others required balancing dual freedom against collective stability. Many challenged fundamental assumptions about hierarchy and authority. Through each scenario, Naruto applied principles developed during his mortal existence, but enhanced by celestial perception, seeing multilayered patterns invisible to more limited consciousness while maintaining connection to individual experience that gave those patterns meaning. Rather than seeking perfect solutions, he consistently prioritized approaches that preserved both cosmic harmony and individual dignity. where traditional cosmic authorities might sacrifice individuals for systemic stability. Naruto repeatedly demonstrated how respecting individual agency actually strengthened cosmic systems rather than weakening them. Outside the cube, observers watched in astonishment as the crystal's color shifted rapidly through spectrum patterns indicating scenario progression. What normally required centuries was unfolding in hours as Naruto moved through the paradoxes at unprecedented speed. Remarkable cognitive processing, Martinu murmured, recording the phenomenon. He's experiencing scenarios at accelerated rates while maintaining comprehensive integration. Not merely speed, Whis observed. Note the resolution patterns. He's developing hybrid approaches that incorporate elements from multiple cosmic traditions rather than following established templates. Gawasu watched with increasing fascination as the cube cycled through centuries of stored wisdom challenges in mere hours. His methodology is unlike anything in our records. Neither strictly Kai nor destroyer approach, yet achieving balance between preservation and necessary change. Finally, the cube pulsed with brilliant light before returning to its original crystalline state. Naruto's consciousness reintegrated with the chamber as he removed his hands from the now dormant crystal. Completion in 6 hours, Gawasu stated, unable to completely mask his astonishment. With resolution patterns that, he paused, searching for appropriate words, that challenge certain fundamental assumptions of cosmic administration. The Grand Minister studied Naruto with increased interest. Quote, elaborate on your approach to the final paradox, involving the civilization that achieved technological ascension at spiritual cost. Naruto nodded, recognizing the test within the test, not just solving the paradoxes but articulating his methodology. Traditional cosmic wisdom would either allow their self-destruction as natural consequence or impose spiritual reformation through external authority. Both approaches maintained cosmic order but sacrificed something essential. He created a subtle energy display illustrating his alternative. Instead, I identified how their technological brilliance could be redirected toward rediscovering their spiritual nature through scientific means, helping them see quantifiably that consciousness transcends material existence. Not imposing spirituality, but helping them rediscover it through their own valued methodology. Unorthodox, Gawasu commented, yet undeniably effective according to multiple evaluation metrics. The celestial sage demonstrates sufficient wisdom for the proposed function, the Grand Minister declared. Resolution metrics exceed standard parameters while maintaining balanced perspective on cosmic principles. Naruto noted varying reactions among the observers, approval from some, surprise from others, and visible discomfort from those who preferred traditional approaches to cosmic governance. The gods of destruction seemed particularly interested in his unorthodox methods, their energy signatures fluctuating between skepticism and grudging respect. We proceed to the trial of power, the Grand Minister announced. Proposed by Universe 11's God of Destruction. A tall, clown-like figure with red skin materialized on the platform, his presence radiating controlled destructive energy that caused subtle distortions in surrounding reality. Despite his flamboyant appearance, his eyes carried the weight of millions of years of cosmic responsibility. Belmod, God of Destruction for Universe 11, he introduced himself with theatrical formality. Your emergence in my jurisdiction necessitates personal evaluation of your capabilities. He studied Naruto with calculating intensity. Wisdom without strength cannot maintain cosmic balance. The celestial sage position requires power sufficient to command respect across universal boundaries. With a gesture, Belmod transformed the chamber environment, reality, shifting to create a massive arena floating in dimensional void. This trial is straightforward. Demonstrate power worthy of your celestial classification. The challenge carried clear implications. A direct combat test against a god of destruction. Naruto sensed Marcarita's subtle concern despite her neutral expression, while Vados watched with apparently casual interest that didn't quite mask her attention to every detail. I assume we're establishing capability rather than superiority, Naruto commented, his tone respectful yet firm. Since hierarchy has already been determined by Zeno-sama's designation. Belmod's expression tightened minutely, a flicker of annoyance at Naruto's diplomatic finesse in establishing boundaries for the confrontation. Of course, merely verification of adequate capacity for your function. Without further preamble, the destroyer god moved with blinding speed, appearing behind Naruto with destruction energy already gathered. The attack came not as a test strike but with genuine force, enough to annihilate a planet instantly. Rather than traditional evasion, Naruto's form briefly shifted to pure energy state, allowing the destruction wave to pass through harmlessly before reconstituting. The maneuver demonstrated perfect control over his celestial composition, a technique that typically required centuries to master. Interesting, Belmod commented, genuine surprise breaking through his theatrical demeanor. Self-phase manipulation already developed. He launched a more complex attack pattern, combining destruction energy with dimensional displacement techniques designed to target beings regardless of physical state. Naruto responded with equally sophisticated defensive measures, creating localized space-time barriers that redirected THE energy rather than absorbing it directly. As the exchange continued, the true nature of the test became apparent. Belmod wasn't merely gauging raw power but assessing Naruto's cosmic combat sophistication. His understanding of dimensional mechanics, energy manipulation, and reality modulation techniques that transcended mortal combat. The destroyer increased intensity steadily, each sequence more complex than the last. Naruto matched him technique for technique, drawing on his centuries of battle experience enhanced by celestial awareness. Where gaps in his cosmic knowledge appeared, he compensated with innovative adaptations of familiar principles, using his mastery of chakra mechanics to develop equivalent approaches to celestial energy manipulation. Observers watched with growing fascination as the demonstration evolved beyond simple power assessment into a masterclass in adaptive combat philosophy. Naruto wasn't mirroring Belmod's destroyer techniques but developing counterpoints that achieved similar results through different conceptual frameworks. Remarkable translation of indigenous energy principles to celestial application, Martinu noted, recording the phenomenon. He's essentially creating new cosmic techniques by adapting his original system's framework to higher dimensional mechanics. Not merely adaptation, Whis observed. Innovation. Several of those counters have no equivalent in established cosmic combat methodology. After a particularly intense exchange that momentarily distorted reality throughout the chamber, Belmod paused, holding up a hand to signal cessation. His expression had shifted from skeptical evaluation to genuine interest. Enough, he declared. Power capacity confirmed sufficient for designated function. A slight smile crossed his features. And considerably more interesting than anticipated. The arena dissolved, returning them to the central platform. Belmod turned to address the Grand Minister. Universe 11 acknowledged the Celestial Sage's power qualification for cross-universal advisory function. Noted and recorded, the Grand Minister replied. The trial of power is concluded satisfactorily. As Belmod returned to the observation gallery, Naruto noticed a subtle shift in the chamber's atmosphere. What had begun as formal evaluation was evolving into genuine curiosity about his capabilities and approach. Even previously skeptical observers leaned forward with increased interest as the Grand Minister announced the next challenge. We proceed to the trial of character, proposed jointly by Universe 2 Feet's Goddess of Love and Universe 9's God of Destruction. Two contrasting figures approached the platform, a beautiful goddess with flowing hair and benevolent countenance, alongside a canine-featured destroyer with perpetually snarling expression. Their combined presence created palpable tension, opposing cosmic forces temporarily allied for evaluation purposes. Hereth, goddess of love, the female deity introduced herself. Her voice melodious with underlying harmonic resonance. Character defines application of both wisdom and power. This trial examines the heart behind the capability. Sidra, god of destruction. Growled her counterpart. Pretty words aside, we need to know if you'll maintain cosmic balance when personal attachments conflict with necessary action. Together they generated a complex energy matrix that surrounded Naruto, reality shifting as it enveloped him. Unlike previous trials, this one operated on deeper levels of consciousness, targeting not intellectual understanding or physical capability but fundamental values and emotional responses. The trial of character presents no external opponent, Hereth explained. It reveals internal conflict between cosmic responsibility and personal attachment. Many who achieve godhood fail here, Sidra added bluntly. Sentimentality compromising necessary action, or conversely, cosmic detachment destroying compassion that gives wisdom meaning. The Matrix activated, drawing Naruto's consciousness into a series of scenarios specifically calibrated to his personal history and values. Unlike the wisdom trials, these targeted emotional response rather than intellectual problem solving, presenting situations where cosmic duty directly opposed his deepest connections. He found himself facing impossible choices, scenarios where preserving cosmic balance required sacrificing individuals he valued, where abstract universal harmony conflicted with concrete personal bonds. Each scenario built upon the last, creating escalating tension between newfound celestial perspective and the human heart he'd maintained through ascension. Outside the Matrix, observers watched energy patterns fluctuate around Naruto's form. Visual representation of the internal struggle between cosmic detachment and personal connection. Unlike standard patterns that typically resolved toward either cold calculation or emotional compromise, his energy maintained unusual harmonic balance between seemingly opposing forces. Fascinating integration pattern, Hareth observed. He's neither abandoning attachment nor allowing it to override cosmic perspective. Instead, he's using personal connection to inform cosmic understanding rather than opposing it. Unconventional, Sidra acknowledged grudgingly. Though whether it proves sustainable remains questionable. The final scenario presented the ultimate test, a situation where saving his home world would create cascading instability across thousands of others. The traditional cosm, IC response would sacrifice the single world for multiversal harmony, while emotional attachment would prioritize personal connection over greater balance. Naruto's solution stunned the observers into silence. Rather than accepting the parameters as presented, he identified the artificial constraint within the scenario itself, recognizing that the apparent dichotomy between local preservation and cosmic harmony stemmed from limited perspective rather than true cosmic necessity. By expanding the solution space beyond conventional approaches, he demonstrated how deeper understanding of causal relationships could preserve both individual worlds and cosmic balance through precisely targeted interventions at nexus points of reality. The Matrix dissolved as the trial concluded, revealing Naruto standing calmly at the center. His energy signature perfectly balanced between cosmic awareness and personal connection. Unprecedented resolution pattern, Hareth stated, genuine wonder in her voice. Neither cold detachment nor compromised sentimentality, but integration that strengthens both cosmic perspective and personal connection. Unorthodox, Sidra admitted, but effective according to established metrics. The celestial sage demonstrates character suitable for cross-universal advisory function. As they returned to the observation gallery, the Grand Minister turned to Naruto. 3 trials completed satisfactorily. The final evaluation concerns perspective integration, your capacity to maintain connection between mortal understanding and celestial awareness. This trial comes from an unexpected source. Reality shifted once more as a small, childlike figure appeared on the platform, Zeno himself, accompanied by his attendants. The Omni King's arrival caused immediate prostration among all observers. Cosmic protocol demanding absolute deference to universal sovereignty. The unusual one is doing well, Zeno observed, his childlike voice carrying underlying power that resonated through reality itself. I want to test him myself. The Grand Minister bowed deeply. As you wish, Zeno-sama. The Omni King approached Naruto directly, studying him with eyes that contained galaxies. You were mortal, now you're more, but are you still you? The seemingly simple question contained profound implications about identity preservation through dimensional transcendence. Naruto met the deity's gaze directly. Neither intimidated nor disrespectful. I am, he confirmed. Different perspective, expanded awareness, but the core remains unchanged. Zeno tilted his head curiously. Show me. Tell me about being mortal in a way that makes me understand. The request silenced the chamber completely. Never in recorded cosmic history had Zeno expressed interest in understanding mortal experience. The unprecedented nature of the request highlighted the unique opportunity and challenge Naruto's position represented. Rather than attempting abstract explanation, Naruto nded his hand palm up toward the Omni King. With your permission, I can share experience directly. Not just concepts but feeling. Zeno studied the offered hand with childlike curiosity before placing his own atop it. Show me. The contact established connection between their consciousness, Naruto carefully structuring the exchange to make mortal experience comprehensible to a being who had never known limitation. He shared not abstract philosophy but concrete moments that defined mortal existence. The sharp pain of loneliness in childhood, the transcendent joy of first true friendship, the bittersweet acceptance of impermanence. The fierce protectiveness toward loved ones. Each memory carried emotional context that gave it meaning, the value of connection magnified by its potential loss. The beauty of moments heightened by their transience, the courage born from vulnerability. Not isolated experiences but the intricate web of relationships between them that created meaning within mortal existence. Throughout the exchange, Zeno's expression shifted through wonder, confusion, sadness, and joy, emotions rarely witnessed on the deity's typically impassive features. When the connection finally dissolved, the Omni King remained silent for several moments, processing the unprecedented perspective. Interesting, he finally declared, his childlike simplicity masking deeper impact. Mortals feel everything more strongly because they don't last forever. Limitation creates meaning, Naruto confirmed. Knowing something will end makes us value it differently than if it were eternal. Zeno considered this with surprising thoughtfulness. That's why you kept your mortal heart even when you became more. To remember how to feel things strongly. Exactly, Naruto agreed. Celestial perspective provides greater understanding, but mortal experience gives that understanding value and purpose. The Omni King nodded, apparently satisfied. Good, you passed my test. He turned to the Grand Minister. The unusual one keeps his mortal perspective while understanding cosmic things. That's what makes him the celestial sage. With that pronouncement, Zeno departed as suddenly as he had appeared. Reality reorganizing itself in his wake. The assembled observers slowly recovered from their astonishment, cosmic entities who had existed for millions of years trying to process the unprecedented interaction they had just witnessed. The Grand Minister was the first to regain complete composure, turning to address the gathering. All 4 trials have been completed satisfactorily. The position of Celestial Sage is hereby established within cosmic hierarchy according to the parameters previously outlined. He gestured to Naruto. Naruto Uzumaki is formally recognized as the first and current Celestial Sage, with all rights and responsibilities thereunto pertaining. The declaration resonated through the chamber, reality itself acknowledging the establishment of a new cosmic classification. Among the observers, reactions varied from solemn acceptance to excited murmuring, the implications of this unprecedented development generating countless speculations about cosmic future. The formal consultation is concluded, the Grand Minister announced. Implementation of the Celestial Sage function will commence immediately, beginning with observational rotation through universal jurisdictions to establish baseline understanding of cosmic operations. As the gathering began to disperse, various cosmic entities approached the central platform to offer congratulations or introductions. Gods of destruction who had initially shown skepticism now expressed interest in Naruto's unorthodox approaches, while Supreme Kai sought opportunities to discuss his perspective on evolutionary guidance. Throughout the proceedings, Marcarita and Vados remained nearby, their presence representing the ongoing connection between Naruto's new function and established celestial operations. Though maintaining professional demeanor, both angels showed subtle signs of approval at the successful establishment of his position. An impressive performance, Whis commented as he joined them. Particularly the character trial resolution. Most newly elevated beings struggle significantly with that particular evaluation. Our new celestial sage continues to defy statistical probability, Martinu added. Reviewing data from the trials. His integration of mortal perspective with celestial awareness creates unique problem-solving frameworks with potential applications beyond current cosmic methodology. The Grand Minister approached after concluding official proceedings, his expression revealing genuine interest beneath perpetual serenity. Your trial responses were most illuminating, Celestial Sage. Particularly your approach to seemingly dichotomous scenarios. Finding third options is something of a specialty, Naruto replied. Throughout my life, I've rarely EPTED that 2 extreme choices were the only possibilities. A perspective that may prove valuable in current cosmic circumstances, the Grand Minister noted enigmatically. Which brings us to implementation of your function. Observational rotation through universal jurisdictions will provide necessary contextual understanding for advisory duties. He turned to Marcarita and Vados. As previously arranged, Universe 11 and Universe 6 will serve as initial rotation points, with expansion to other jurisdictions as baseline knowledge is established. Of course, Father, Marcarita acknowledged formally. Universe 11 stands ready to facilitate the Celestial Sage's observational requirements. As does Universe 6, Vados added. Lord Champa has expressed particular interest in the perspective offerings of our new cosmic colleague. The Grand Minister nodded approval before addressing Naruto directly. While formal parameters have been established, the practical implementation of your unction will inevitably evolve through experience. The unprecedented nature of your position provides both challenge and opportunity for cosmic administration. I understand, Naruto replied. New roles always require adaptation by both the individual and the system. Indeed, a hint of genuine approval crossed the Grand Minister's features. Your first observational rotation will commence tomorrow. Beginning with Universe 6 under Vados' guidance, followed by Universe 11 with Marcarita. Subsequent rotations will be determined based on preliminary findings. With formal arrangements completed, the Grand Minister departed, leaving Naruto with the angels to prepare for implementation of his newly established function. Well, Naruto said once they were alone, that was certainly thorough. The trials exceeded standard parameters in both complexity and expectation, Marcarita acknowledged. Your performance has generated significant interest across cosmic jurisdictions, particularly your interaction with Zeno-sama. Vados added, in millions of years of cosmic administration, I cannot recall the Omni King ever expressing interest in understanding mortal perspective. He seemed almost lonely. Naruto observed thoughtfully, like someone who watches everything but rarely connects with anything. Both angels exchanged glances at this observation, an insight into their supreme authority that their millions of years of service hadn't yielded. A perspective unique to your position, Vados noted carefully. The capacity to see patterns invisible even to those who they observed existence since its beginning. As they departed the chamber, Naruto reflected on the day's proceedings. The trials had confirmed his capabilities and established his position, yet he said deeper purpose beneath the formal evaluation, cosmic forces responding to change that transcended mere administrative reorganization. His enhanced perception detected subtle disturbances through the multiversal fabric, patterns of increasing instability that existing cosmic structures struggled to address through conventional approaches. Perhaps this explained Zeno's willingness to create an unprecedented position, introducing new perspective when established methods proved insufficient. Whatever challenges lay ahead, Naruto would face them as he had faced every trial throughout his existence, with unwavering determination, adaptable thinking, and the balanced perspective that came from honoring both his mortal origins and celestial potential. The Celestial Sage had been officially recognized. Now the real work began. Universe 6, a sacred realm defied conventional description, a dimension where physical laws bent according to divine intention rather than fixed constants. As Naruto and Vados materialized in its heart, his enhanced perception cataloged fundamental differences from Universe 11's structure, subtle variations in cosmic frequency, distinct evolutionary patterns, and unique energy signatures that suggested different developmental pathways despite shared fundamental physics. Welcome to Universe 6, Vados announced as reality stabilized around them. The first stop in your observational rotation. Quote, they stood atop a crystalline plateau overlooking endless cosmic expanse, where galaxies swirled like luminous fish in a celestial sea. Unlike the rigid structure of the celestial nexus, this environment possessed organic quality, reality expressing potential rather than certainty. Beautiful, Naruto observed, his senses perceiving layers beyond physical appearance. The harmonic patterns are different from Universe 11, more fluid, less linear. Each universe develops distinct resonance patterns based on evolutionary trajectory, Vados confirmed. Universe 6 prioritizes adaptation over stability, creating more variable development paths for its civilizations. She gestured toward a temple-like structure that materialized nearby, elegant architect. That somehow existed in multiple states simultaneously, appearing differently depending on perspective angle. Lord Champa's sanctuary, she explained. Where Universe 6, a god of destruction, can't Emplates cosmic balance when not actively fulfilling destruction duties. As if summoned by mention, a rotund purple feline figure appeared before them, corpulent yet radiating destructive energy that caused reality to warp slightly around his form. Despite his seemingly casual demeanor, Naruto's enhanced perception detected power comparable to Belmod's contained within more relaxed control structures. So this is the anomaly everyone's talking about, Champa observed, circling Naruto with undisguised curiosity. The mortal who achieved celestial status without permission, causing quite the commotion across cosmic circles. Lord Champa, Vados introduced formally, may I present Naruto Uzumaki, officially recognized celestial sage following successful completion of establishment trials. Saw the trials through observation link, Champa commented, still studying Naruto with feline intensity. Interesting approaches, unorthodox, effective though. He stopped directly before Naruto, meeting his gaze. Especially the character trial. Most elevated beings fail that one spectacularly, either turn completely detached or remain embarrassingly sentimental. Balance has always been my goal, Naruto replied respectfully. Between opposing forces, perspectives, or approaches. HMPH. We'll see if that balance holds during actual cosmic operations, Champa noted, though without hostility. Theory and practice tend to diverge when facing real multiversal challenges. He turned to Vados. The observation schedule, as approved by the Grand Minister, she confirmed. Beginning with civilization development monitoring, followed by destruction candidate evaluation, culminating with evolutionary pattern analysis across galactic clusters. Fine, Champa waved dismissively. Just keep me informed of any interesting insights. New perspective might prove useful for certain, competitive matters. The Destroyer God's casual mention carried implications Naruto immediatal. Why detected? Ongoing rivalry with another cosmic entity that influenced universal governance decisions. Before he could inquire, Champa vanished in a pulse of destructive energy, returning to whatever activity Naruto's arrival had interrupted. Lord Champa maintains certain competitive interests with his twin brother, Lord Beerus of Universe 7, Vados explained, noting Naruto's questioning expression. Their rivalry occasionally influences cosmic administration priorities. Even destroyer gods have personal motivations, Naruto observed. Indeed, cosmic entities maintain individual characteristics despite elevated perspective. Vados gestured toward the expansive view. Which brings us to your observational rotation. Shall we begin with civilization development monitoring? Several worlds in this universe are approaching critical evolutionary junctures. Naruto nodded, eager to understand practical cosmic operations beyond theoretical frameworks. Lead the way. With a tap of her staff, Vados transported them across dimensional boundaries to their first observation point, a solar system near Universe 6, a center where multiple civilizations were approaching technological singularity simultaneously. As they materialized in orbit around the primary planet, Naruto's enhanced perception immediately cataloged the complex interplay between technological development, social evolution, and cosmic potential. Fascinating integration patterns, he observed, studying energy flows that connected seemingly separate development processes. Their technological advancement is actually enhancing spiritual awareness rather than diminishing it. A relatively rare evolutionary pathway, Vados confirmed. Most civilizations experience spiritual regression during rapid technological advancement phases. This system represents potential exception to standard developmental models. Throughout the day, they visited dozens of worlds across Universe 6, each presenting unique evolutionary challenges and opportunities. Naruto observed Vados' methodology with increasing appreciation, her approach combining analytical precision with genuine curiosity about developmental variables that defied prediction. Unlike the rigid hierarchical perspective he had sensed from other angels, Vados demonstrated remarkable flexibility in her cosmic administration. Where standard protocols might dictate intervention to maintain established patterns, she often allowed creative deviation when potential benefits outweighed disruption costs. You're more interested in what could be than what should be, Naruto noted as they observed a particularly unusual civilization that had developed telepathic symbiosis with its technology. An accurate observation, Vados acknowledged. The multiverse strengthens through diversity rather than uniformity. Unique developmental pathways often yield insights applicable across universal boundaries. Her approach resonated with Naruto's own philosophy, Reinef, orking his growing sense that his position as celestial sage aligned naturally with certain aspects of cosmic administration while challenging others. Throughout the observational rotation, he found himself identifying patterns that connected seemingly unrelated developmental processes across different worlds, perspective that Vados confirmed offered novel insight even to her millions of years of experience. Your capacity to perceive relationship networks between disparate evolutionary systems is remarkable, she commented during observation of a galactic cluster approaching unified consciousness. You're identifying connection patterns that our standard analytical frameworks often miss. Probably because I'm still thinking partially as a mortal, Naruto suggested. Seeing both the cosm, I see overview and ground-level perspective simultaneously. Precisely what makes the celestial sage function potentially valuable, Vados confirmed. Bridging perspective gaps that even angels can develop after millions of years of standardized observation. Their rotation continued through various cosmic functions, evaluating worlds approaching destruction thresholds, analyzing evolutionary cation points where civilizations could advance or regress, and observing how seemingly minor variations in development conditions created vastly different outcomes across similar species. Throughout each observation, Naruto integrated new understanding with existing knowledge, building comprehensive models of cosmic operations that incorporated both celestial protocol and practical implementation. The gap between theory and practice became increasingly apparent, how cosmic administrators adapted formal directives to address unique circumstances that no system could fully anticipate. The hierarchical model presented during orientation suggested more rigid implementation than I'm observing, Naruto noted as they concluded a particularly complex evaluation involving multiple intersecting civilizations. Formal structure provides necessary framework, Vados explained, but effective cosmic administration requires interpretive flexibility. The multiverse is too complex for absolute procedural governance. She created a display showing long-term developmental patterns across Universe 6. Consider evolutionary history across cosmic timeframes. Periods of strict procedural adherence typically produce stability but limited growth. Periods of flexible interpretation generate more variable outcomes but greater developmental potential. Balance between structure and adaptation, Naruto observed. Like any effective governance system. Indeed, Vados agreed, though finding that balance remains an eternal challenge even for beings who have observed cosmic cycles for millions of years. As their observational rotation neared completion, Vados transported them to a final location, a mysterious realm at Universe 6, a boundary where reality itself appeared unstable, dimensional barriers thinning to near transparency. The peripheral veil, she explained as they materialized in the shifting environment. Where universal boundaries connect with extradimensional space. Not typical, LLY included in standard observation protocols, but potentially relevant to your unique function. Naruto studied the phenomenon with fascination, his enhanced perception detecting subtle energy patterns flowing through dimensional barriers, connections to realms beyond standard cosmic cartography. These aren't random fluctuations, there's communication happening across boundaries. Very perceptive, Vados acknowledged. The multiverse as formally recognized represents only structured reality within Zeno-sama's governance. Beyond these boundaries exist other dimensional states with different organizational principles. The revelation expanded Naruto's cosmic understanding significantly. The 12 universes weren't truly everything, but merely ordered reality within larger existential framework. Does Zeno-sama know about these connections? The Omni King is aware of everything within creation, Vados replied carefully. Though cosmic administration typically focuses on maintaining internal balance rather than external relationship, she studied him with increased interest. Your immediate perception of these patterns suggests the celestial sage function may include boundary awareness beyond standard cosmic roles. Perhaps another reason Zeno-sama created your unique position. Before Naruto could explore this intriguing possibility further, a subtle dimensional ripple announced another presence arriving. Marcarita materialized beside them, her expression professionally neutral though her energy patterns revealed surprise at their location. Celestial Sage, Vados, she greeted formally. I apologize for the interruption, but the Grand Minister has requested immediate consultation regarding an unexpected development. Vados raised an eyebrow slightly. What manner of development warrants schedule disruption? Anomalous energy signatures have been detected across multiple universal boundaries, Marcarita explained, her tone carefully measured. Similar to THOs generated during the Celestial Sage's emergence, but without identifiable source. The implication caused both Naruto and Vados to exchange concerned glances. If energy signatures resembling his ascension were appearing elsewhere, it suggested either other beings following similar paths or something mimicking the process for unknown purposes. The Grand Minister believes the Celestial Sage's perspective may prove valuable in analysis, Marcarita continued, given his unique experience with the phenomenon. Of course, Naruto agreed immediately. Where are we meeting? The Celestial Nexus has been reconfigured for multiversal monitoring, Marcarita replied. All angels have been recalled for consultation. With a nod to Vados, who concealed her surprise at the unprecedented recall. Naruto prepared for immediate transit. Whatever was causing energy signatures similar to his emergence clearly warranted serious attention from cosmic authorities, potentially the first major challenge for his newly established position. As they departed Universe 6, a boundary realm, Naruto's thoughts turned to the potential implications. His ascension had been unprecedented, challenging fundamental assumptions about cosmic hierarchy. If others were following similar paths, or something was creating that impression, the multiverse might be entering a period of significant change. The Celestial Sage would soon face his first true test beyond ceremonial trials. Whatever awaited at the Nexus would likely reveal whether his unique perspective truly offered value to cosmic administration, and whether the balance he had maintained between mortal heart and celestial awareness could withstand real multiversal crisis. The Celestial Nexus had transformed when they arrived, it's usually a leg-ant architecture reconfigured into crisis monitoring configuration. The central atrium now displayed real-time energy patterns from across all 12 universes simultaneously, highlighting anomalous signatures with pulsing crimson indicators. Angels from every universe had gathered, their normally composed demeanors showing subtle signs of concern as they analyzed the unprecedented phenomenon. The Grand Minister stood at the chamber's center, coordinating multiple information streams with perfect precision despite their complexity. He acknowledged Naruto's arrival with a slight nod before returning to his analysis. The anomalies appeared simultaneously across universal boundaries, he explained as Naruto approached. Energy signatures bearing 87% similarity to those generated during your ascension, yet lacking conscious direction patterns associated with sentient transformation. Naruto studied the displays, his unique perspective immediately recognizing subtle differences between his own emergence pattern and these new signatures. They're similar but fundamentally different, he observed. Like echoes rather than original sounds, missing the underlying consciousness structure that defined my transition. Precisely, the Grand Minister confirmed. These signatures contain surface-level resonance with celestial emergence but lack deeper integration patterns. Almost as if something is mimicking the process without truly undergoing transformation. The implications sent ripples of concern through the assembled angels. Cosmic ascension was supposed to be impossible without divine authorization. Naruto's achievement had been unprecedented exception. These new signatures suggested either multiple similar exceptions occurring simultaneously, statistically impossible, or something deliberately creating impression of ascension for unknown purpose. Could it be reaction to my emergence? Naruto asked. Like ripples spreading from a stone dropped in water. Initial analysis suggested that possibility. Whis replied, joining their conversation. However, the distribution pattern defies causal propagation models. These signatures aren't radiating outward from you. Our emergence point but appearing at specifically calibrated locations across universal boundaries. Suggesting deliberate placement rather than natural phenomenon, Vados concluded. The Grand Minister gestured, expanding the dimensional display to show precise locations of each anomalous signature. Note the positioning. Each appears at nexus points between universal boundaries, locations where dimensional barriers naturally thin due to resonance patterns. Naruto immediately recognized the significance, connecting this information with what Vados had shown him at Universe 6, a peripheral veil. They're at communication points between dimensions. Places where our multiverse connects with whatever exists beyond. His observation caused momentary silence among the angels, many turning to R.E. guard him with surprise at this immediate perception of pattern that would typically require extensive analysis to identify. A concerning hypothesis with significant supporting evidence, the Grand Minister acknowledged. If correct, it suggests these signatures may represent attempt at cross-dimensional communication, or infiltration, using your ascension pattern as template. But why mimic my emergence specifically? Naruto questioned. And why now? Your ascension created unprecedented ripples through dimensional barriers, Martinu explained, reviewing analytical data. The transformati on of mortal consciousness to celestial awareness without standard elevation protocols may have revealed pathways previously undetectable to extradimensional entities. Like inadvertently creating a beacon. Naruto realized with growing concern. Not your fault, the Grand Minister clarified. Your emergence followed natural progression despite its unprecedented nature. Whatever generates these mimicking signatures appears to be using your energy pattern as reference point for dimensional targeting. He turned to address all assembled angels. This situation requires immediate investigation of all anomalous signatures. Each angel will return to their universe and examine boundary points showing activity. Report findings directly through secure channels. As the angels prepared to depart for their assigned locations, the Grand Minister addressed Naruto directly. Celestial Sage, your unique perspective may prove particularly valuable in this investigation. I request you accompany Vados to Universe 6, a primary anomaly point, as you've already established observational familiarity with that jurisdiction. Of course, Naruto agreed immediately. Though I'm not sure what I'll be able to detect that angels with millions of years of experience can't. Perhaps that's precisely the point, the Grand Minister replied enigmatically. Fresh perspective unbound by established analytical frameworks. The very quality that defines your function as Celestial Sage. With assignments distributed, the angels departed for their respective universes, dimensional passages opening simultaneously as they returned to their jurisdictions. Naruto prepared to accompany Vados back to Universe 6, his mind already processing potential connections between his ascension and these mysterious mimicking signatures. Ready? Vados asked as she prepared their transport. Naruto nodded, his expression reflecting the seriousness of their mission. Let's find out what's using my ascension as a template, and why. As they departed the Nexus, Naruto couldn't help feeling partially responsible for whatever was occurring. His unprecedented achievement had apparently attracted attention from beyond dimensional boundaries, creating potential threat to cosmic stability. The Celestial Sage would need all his wisdom, power, and unique perspective to address this first real challenge to his newly established position. The trials of divinity had only just begun. Chapter 3 End. The End. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.